What happens when the weakest son in a noble family wakes up carrying the instincts of the deadliest assassin his world has ever known? Cyan Vert gets one second life, and this time every humiliation, betrayal, prophecy, and God standing in his way becomes something he intends to overturn. When a duel is announced between the sons of Duke Vert to determine who will become the next successor, and who will be a loser for life, no one believes in Cyan, because before this he lost every single training duel, and was the disgrace of the family. There's just no way he can win against a genius like Cray, but Cyan simply grips his rapier and locks in. In his past life, this traitor Cray bullied Cyan just for fun, so now Cyan makes sure Cray learns who's the boss here and beats him to a pulp. As he lay dying, Cyan couldn't believe what a foolish life he had led serving that traitor. A high-ranking knight escorts him through the halls toward the chamber. Just before they arrive, he spots Margaret stepping out of the office. She hisses that he had no business fighting at all. The words sink in and his jaw tightens. Cyan informs her he'll be enrolling in the academy with Cray. She squints, unsure what he's getting at, so he spells it out, his tone sharp and deliberate. They don't have time to waste. He gives her one last smirk before turning toward the Duke's chambers. He carried that burden to his last breath during the demon raid. All he ever wanted was peace across the continent. Cyan says he needed to prove something, that he's better than Cray. Despite their shared bloodline, the Duke breaks into a wide grin, intrigued and excited by what he just heard. Cyan freezes at the sound of that name. The idea of supporting someone like Ashel now that he knows who he truly is absurd. Back in his room, the maid nearly jumps out of her skin when she hears what he's requested. He's still weaker than most kids his age. What he does have is combat intuition carried over from his past life and a faint trace of magic within himself. She's already heard the news about his plan to head to the battlefront. She lays into him, accusing him of letting his win against Cray get to his head. That's when it clicks. He gets why she's so aggressive, but he doesn't give about her family name. She doesn't have time to dodge the counter, but Cyan twists his blade at the last second, giving her a window to escape. But now he's starting to burn out. To make up for what his body can't handle, he's been forcing mana through his sword, and he's just about hit the wall. He charges, hoping pure adrenaline and blind faith will unlock his magic midden. But before their blades connect, the Knight Yulin drops in and shuts the whole thing down, blocking them both. She once matched Ashel blow for blow in their fight for the title of Continent's Guardian, but then it all collapsed. Wasn't he the Duke's personal knight? What's he doing here if the Duke already left for war? Mid-thought, fatigue hits like a truck and he knocks out in her arms. She smiles softly, thinking to herself, he really is still just a kid. For the past 2 weeks, he's been grinding through strength training. No results. He misses the strength he used to have. He shrugs and tells her that after surviving her cooking, this is basically tea. Years ago, Ashel received a divine revelation from Luminal, the god of light. It spoke of an ancient temple hidden in the mountains. He crouches, feeling along the earth, searching for the exact spot where the mana thickens. Among them was Durandark, a sacred blade personally blessed by Luminal. There's an old legend. After stepping beyond the blad's glow, a strange shadow appears. It's like reuniting with an old friend, the same blade from his past life. He says she's acting way too reckless and wasn't like this before. The demon looks shaken. He inherited Eru's legacy, and she should kneel to her new master. She doesn't buy it, calls and attacks. He warns that if she doesn't submit now, things will get uglier. She growls, enraged, so he doubles down, pressing her even deeper into the ground to make his point. She asks his name, curious when he tells her. She raises an eyebrow. Out of everyone, why would Eru pick a kid she's never even heard of? The Duke is already there waiting, flanked by his knights. Magic flares and a hellhound emerges from the summoned light. It's the trial meant to judge his worth. A few days earlier he had gone to Yulin with a request for a duel. The strike was blocked, but the weight behind it caught Yulin off guard. He didn't expect a 10-year-old's blade to hit that hard. Blow after blow came crashing down. Every strike backed by full effort. He blocked them all barely. He watches it make its move. It charges. He dodges cleanly. She needs blood if she's going to wake fully. He reassures her. Soon enough he'll use her to his heart's content. Binding spells tighten around it, locking its movement with arcane chains. While the beast is immobilized, he charges in with the main force to finish it off. In fact, he admits the place almost feels nostalgic. The Duke approaches and asks how it feels to stand on the front lines for the first time. But the guards in this area follow orders too strictly, which means he won't be able to summon Karum. He's hopeless without her there. If she disappeared out of nowhere, no one would care for him. She asks if he's heading out to train. He nods, confirming it. She praises his commitment and says the Duke would be proud seeing him like this. He cloaks himself in fog magic to slip through unnoticed. He recalls this place should still be crawling with monsters, the ideal ground for Karum. Elsewhere, across the front lines, a group of knights is escorting a royal convoy through the mountain paths. She's supposedly the next heir to an empire. The maid apologizes for overstepping and brings up something she heard. Why would he send someone that young into war? The maid clarifies that the duke didn't make him go. After clearing the field and eliminating the threats, he approaches his son to ask how he feels after throwing himself into combat. It's the first time he's seen this kind of warmth. Before walking away, the duke tells him they need a private talk inside his tent the next day. These creatures usually spawn much deeper in the valley, so finding one here doesn't add up. He steps forward, allowing it. With the 9th form of thick fog, demonic sword manifestation, she unleashes her full speed and strength, slicing the worm into pieces with almost no effort. They immediately pick up on the dense mana lingering in the space, and it raises suspicion that a demon might be responsible. They sweep the area and end up finding a massive dead death worm. A new question is raised. As he's trying to rest, she appears, telling him she finally understands something. On the inside, he's clearly mature, but his body is still stuck in a kid's form. It's almost like he's had 30 years of experience. And after hearing what he said before about dying, she's now fully convinced he must have come back from the future. It must have taken someone strong to kill him. Her theory, he was taken down by the wielder of the Durandark, either lost in a duel or was betrayed by someone close. And if that's the case, he's probably out for payback. Her tone shifts and she growls that if he ever dies or gets defeated again, she'll devour him whole. He asks if any other rumors have started spreading, but before she can say more, Yolkin interrupts, saying the Duke wants to speak with him. His father would immediately recognize his attack pattern. The Duke gestures for him to sit down, and without any build-up or delay, Father immediately addresses the reason Father summoned him. Those markings they discovered yesterday bear an uncanny resemblance to the cuts left by his sword style. Their signature: every kill site is shrouded in black fog, then one day they just vanish. Based on that alone, the Duke assumes the mist is behind the Deathworm slaying and the other recent monster kills. But regardless, the Empire's higher-ups must be informed. He feels slightly relieved. His father didn't suspect a thing and believed the lie. He then spots Sion nearby and introduces him as the youngest member of the Vert family. Back in his past life, whenever the Emperor came by, he was always told to stay locked in his room. He immediately identifies her. She's infamous as the tragic 5th princess. The favor mentioned earlier was about her. For now, though, he has to go along with it. He ends up walking beside her like he was told. Eventually, the bodies rot and the fluids run into the water, staining it red. Their eyes drift to the sky where a faint yellow glow appears on the horizon. The Emperor interrupts, declaring he won't sit back and let others shield him. He hasn't tasted real combat in ages, and is itching to dive into the action. He ignores her and calls for Yulin, assigning him to keep her safe and take her somewhere far from the fight. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. Is she ready to bear the weight of that? Her eyes well up. The soldiers respond with fire and charge straight for the demonic snail. The ruler of Ushif, Emperor Dionys, has taken 2 wives throughout his reign. She carried herself with the grace and presence expected of any princess, and she dedicated herself with intensity to her academic path. That was enough to earn her the nickname the Tragic Princess. He, for one, believes things could have turned out differently. Meanwhile, far across the war zone, the Emperor and the Duke have been making significant progress wiping out the monster swarms. Several nobles have been killed lately, and word is spreading fast, unsettling both citizens and soldiers. That makes his companion pause. He says he noticed the same kind of fog behind the camp just yesterday, which leads him to suspect that the black fog users have resurfaced. He's been trying to keep things from boiling over, but some factions are clearly looking to use the situation against her. The Duke swears on his life to protect her no matter what, and with that, the conversation draws to a close. There's something she wants to talk about. She asks how long he's been stuck out here. He tells her to give them some space so they can talk privately, but she replies with a sarcastic grin, joking that they should all just have fun together. Her voice lowers, weighed down by emotion. She says he's well liked by everyone, that he carries himself with more maturity than she does. With tears starting to fall, she says he probably sees her like everyone else does, a fake, undeserving princess. She tells him she ran into Ashel during a walk near the Royal Academy. Emily rushes in, panic written across her face, yelling for them to get out immediately, but they're too late. Meanwhile, panic floods his mind. He can't wrap his head around why powerful monsters keep showing up this far behind enemy lines. But he managed to get out before the structure collapsed. There's no way he'd let an orc finish him off when he's slain demon kings in a past life. The knights approach and reassure her that protecting her is their sworn duty, and they're ready to die if that's what it takes. Emily grabs the princess and bolts, leaving him to face the threat alone, but his strikes barely scratch the creature. Furious, he snaps, demanding to know why she didn't say anything sooner if she knew this from the start. But then he spots something worse. Dozens more high-level beasts still on the move. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the Duke has just taken out the final remaining monster in his area. When she nods, he asks what happened. With her voice shaking, she explains that he told them to run while he stayed behind to hold off the monsters. They have to return to formation before more lives are lost. When someone asks what's going to happen to him, the answer is calm and final. But then a sound cuts through the noise, a voice she instantly recognizes. The Emperor watches with intrigue and asks the Duke if he's planning to save his own son. Before all this chaos began, back when he was still holding off the army of monsters, he had slashed through them quickly, not even sparing a thought, until all that remained was the dragon. But the moment didn't last. It went aggressive fast, blasting a column of fire his way. That's how he ended up stuck, clinging to its back, powerless and exposed. She demands to know why he hasn't used her to fight back. That serious look on his father's face means only one thing. He's about to target the dragon, even knowing his son is on it. As he falls, she yells for him to use his powers to escape, to fly out before it's too late. Still, if curiosity's got him, he's free to check it out for himself. Just try not to massacre everything in sight. He quickly checks on her, making sure she's all right too, but she's too furious to even speak. But right on cue, fate slaps him across the face with a voice he knows far too well. With a furious tone, Valkyrian demands to know if he is a human. Too tense and hyper-focused to respond, he keeps his silence. He locks up briefly, trying to process what to do, but then Valkyrian surprises him by calmly telling him to relax. Once again, Valkyrian asks if he's really a human and how he ended up here. Cyan nods, but the other still isn't buying it. He then questions whether Cyan has seen him before, to which he firmly denies. His unbothered expression makes it seem like he already knows him. Valkyrian continues to talk, clearly thinking aloud, but Cyan isn't really listening. But looking at him now, he just doesn't seem like the type who would trigger such chaos. And if anyone threatens that peace, he won't hesitate to wipe them out. For a split second, Cyan glimpses the real core of Valkyrian, a raw force of evil restrained deep within. Cyan responds with a plea. No matter what happens, promise never to invade the human lands or declare war. He asks for his name and upon learning it, solemnly vows as Demon King that he will never initiate war with the humans or encroach upon their lands regardless of circumstances. He becomes known as the one who survived the Devil Dragon. Later, back within the abbey near the Velius border, Cyan rests in a hospital bed. She quickly brushes her tears away and forces a smile, insisting she just needs to level up, get stronger, become powerful enough that someone like him might finally look her way and accept her presence. Some days later, off in the shadowed edge of the forest's rear border, a man slips through the trees, making sure no one's trailing behind. The smuggler immediately launches into a frantic explanation, rambling about how the cube's no ordinary item. Reynold freezes, stunned that Can's the one who got the jump on him. He demands to know what brought him out here, but the other man doesn't even acknowledge the question. Somebody's selling. While he tries to piece together who the mole could be, Reynold tries to blindside him with a fire burst. Over on the western edge of Veles, inside a trade station near the border, a group of merchants crack open a box of supposed blood shipments, only to recoil when they spot Reynold's decapitated head, hovering in a swirl of black mist inside one of the containers. Karam, standing beside him, questions why he's letting these traitors walk free. He replies flatly, they just need something to shake them. And he's dead set on stopping that spiral. Karam throws in a jab, mocking him for suddenly doing the Empire a solid after swearing he was done with all that. His attention perks up when she mentions something. Cyan apparently went off to the front lines, and he took their father with him. The relief is real and she practically shouts her excitement. She turns to Cyan saying the academy is going to be a total upgrade compared to this grim place they're stuck in now. Time passes and eventually the entrance day arrives. Cyan reaches the front gates and on his way in runs into Cray. She comments that he doesn't really resemble the rest of the family, but he disagrees, saying he's not all that different from Alice. After grinding nonstop for the past year, he decides to take it as a win. Cyan keeps himself in check, trying not to do anything reckless. Ashel comments that he probably doesn't even remember him. Cyan bites back the disgust, says he's looking forward to it too, but the hatred in his eyes says something else. And oddly, that thought calms him down. Meanwhile, just down the hallway, Emily's lugging his stuff toward the room. Once he's gone, she vents her frustration, demanding to know why the hell can warn her he'd be here today. Over in Ashel's private room, a butler enters with an update. As ordered, he's been tracking the second princess, and now he's found her. Makes sense she'd pull it off. He tells the butler to notify him right away if she ever decides to return. Sharp and heavy, like he was staring down a sworn enemy, he orders the man to keep tabs on Cyan from here on out. Her words catch him off guard, not because of what she says, but because it proves she hasn't changed at all since his last life. She'd picked him up and carried him on her back, running all the way to the closest doctor. She waves after him, eyes glossy with tears but smiling wide. To him, she's never just been a maid. The landscape doesn't match, not even close. No forest like this exists near Saffron. One of them simply tells him the only thing he needs to know is that he's dying today. Within seconds, he cuts through them like dead weight, limbs and armor crashing to the ground. He walks over, weapon still drawn, and asks again who ordered this. No dodging, no delay. Not long after, the outline of the academy finally comes into view in the distance. Her nerves spike, disbelief setting in. None of this tracks. The butler calmly suggests they may have misjudged his abilities. She cuts him off before he can finish. If they try that, he'll go straight for Cray. He glances out and spots the academy building. Nostalgia hits hard. A flood of memories comes rushing in. In 2 days, he's expected to attend the entrance ceremony and elemental assessment. The staff hands him an ornate key paired with a sealed letter. Cyan turns to him. Now that the escort gig's over, it's time to settle things. Cyan shrugs it off and decides to skip the ceremony. He's going straight for the elemental test. He's honestly impressed with what the kids are packing this year, but one name jumps out above the rest. None of the other prodigies match up to her little brother. Instructor Sira points out that his element is still darkness. He wants to see how this plays out, whether Cyan becomes the Empire's savior or its downfall. Out of nowhere, he runs into Cray, who looks like he's seen a ghost. Cyan slams him into the wall with one clean kick before the guy can make a sound. But if he lays eyes on him again, he's leaving the academy in a wheelchair. The second she gets it back, she strikes. Black fog lashes out. He narrowly sidesteps the hit and calls her out as the helm of the assassin group missed. Back then, it made 0 sense. What growth was she expecting from someone constantly humiliated by his own brother in front of the whole school? Said that was just because humanity barely understands it. His potential, she claimed, was limitless, and she was looking forward to seeing what he became. He tells her she'll need a better recipe next time. That pisses her off. He brings up how before he left for Katan, someone questioned whether one night would be enough. Says he's on to the assassinations. She warns he's going to regret running his mouth. Only someone chosen by Eru can wield it. She freezes, rattled. He tells her he knows Mist is still searching for the successor. She finds it odd that Cyan doesn't seem remotely surprised that Mist's space turns out to be in such a grim back alley place. What lies ahead isn't ordinary space. It's a constructed realm formed from the god of Fog's power, which makes the interior stretch far beyond what the entrance suggests. With a sharp swing, he bats them away cleanly. Now serious, they spread out and encircle him, ready to strike from every direction. One by one, they crumple to the floor, passed out, but not all of them. The attacker's mask falls in the scuffle, and it turns out it was Sira the whole time. She sprints after him, casting a speed-enhancing spell to close the gap and launching an attack that he parries without much effort. The outside world doesn't even know this place exists, which means he can go all out and use whatever he has in his arsenal without restraint. Sira instantly recognizes her and bows in respect. The spirit demands an answer. Why the hell was she attacking Eru's chosen successor? Soraka, still grinning in that weird, creepy way, interrupts to say she's not going to reject the duel that was offered. They square off, and she's clearly loving the threat, acting like a full-blown masochist. They defend it as an act of mercy, twisted in a way only they seem to understand. Even though he's technically the chosen successor, the god has never heard his name before and wants proof, something solid to back the claim. Since the god doesn't recognize him, it can only mean the stone chose on its own, especially considering it vanished completely last year, which lines up even more with his identity as the next in line. Cyan once suspected the god had meddled in his trip through time, but Eru isn't the all-powerful being he used to be. Lazy as ever, just like Cyan remembers, but jokes aside, the god notices something off. Last time his answer was dumb. Live for his brother. That answer got him betrayed. Cyan isn't chasing some grand mission or noble dream. He'll use that power for one reason: himself. He decided from the start he's done following orders, done living by someone else's rules. That touch snaps her into her true form, and it doesn't drain any of Cyan's mana this time because Eru gives her a portion of his own life force, allowing her to maintain that body without wearing him out. She absolutely loses it, yelling and tearing into him for saying something so disgusting. The sword spirit tries to rile her up, saying it's suspicious how close the constructor and must be if she's sneaking into his room early in the morning. One of them brings up doing a little experiment and the others go along without question. Princess Erin steps forward, a flaring, calling them out. How could nobles stoop so low and attack the helpless? Arin, 5th princess of the Yushif Empire. Barrett doesn't seem all that fazed by the princess title or the fact she's the emperor's daughter. He offers to let her speak for herself. The girl stands trembling and bruised, eyes dulled with resignation. It's painfully obvious the girl's lying out of fear. Before she can lead the girl away, he grabs Aaron's arm to stop her. One glance is all it takes for Cyan to recognize Leximus. Hard to forget someone you had a brutal death match with in a past life. Instead, he challenged her formally. He didn't gain a thing from doing it that way, but she'd earned it. So, he cooks up a scare tactic, forming a monomarble in his hand and building it until it balloons to the size of a cow, then calmly threatening to force-feed it right back. Aaron stands beside the bed, proud and unshaken, telling her to take it easy. Still pushing forward. Exactly what you'd expect from the best swordswoman the continent would ever see. Things aren't going to get better here. Aaron, clearly upset, watches his face. He changes tone, telling her to take Leximus in as a servant. She apologizes for the misunderstanding. She dresses in boyish clothes, keeps her hair short. Leximus thanks her and swears to grow into someone worthy of that protection. She turns to thank Cyan too, but he's already gone. She'd already given him a hell of a first mission to start with. He's already stressing out, wondering how much worse it'll get from here. His first thought is that some kind of demon creature has broken into the academy. The kid who walked off the battlefield after fighting a dragon and lived to tell it. And now here that same guy is standing in front of him way earlier than expected. Muscle mass clearly doesn't equal brain power because Seth bolts off in the completely wrong direction. One's a knight, confirming that everything's ready to go. The other gives him the order to move. He runs it, manages it, and even breeds creatures specifically to sell them off. Before anyone even thinks of reacting, Cyan's already sliced through the rest, silent and precise. He responds by severing the man's hand. For someone who's tortured and trafficked lives, built a business out of breeding and breaking others, death is the only sentence that fits. It's the buyers who are the real villains, says the demands out there, and he's just the supply guy. Back at their place, Brian sees it and immediately flips. How the hell did he end up with a dragon egg from the street? But of course, right on cue, the moment he finishes that sentence, the shell starts cracking. He immediately turns to Karum, throwing blame her way for letting things end up like this. As for the dragons, they're fanatics about keeping their lineage pure, and if they learn of her birth, they'll execute anyone involved. Karum watches silently as he battles through the dilemma, visibly unsure what his conscience will decide. He lifts her slowly and takes in the small, bizarre creature clinging to him. She quickly dismisses him, brushing it off with an excuse and making a swift exit. Back inside his royal quarters, he's midway through feeding the dragon kid when Sarah barges in. His actions are now drawing far too much attention. He hadn't actually thought Seth would pull it off, but the request went through. They only allow sword play and magic, no freestyle chaos like he prefers. He proposes they ditch magic altogether and fight with nothing but pure skill. In one last desperate move, Seth speeds behind him to try and land a sneak attack, but Cyan doesn't even raise his sword. That quick recovery finally manages to catch his attention. The audience is absolutely locked in, watching what feels like a duel to the death. Off in the distance, the dean observes in silence, clearly invested in how this match unfolds. He's studying the way the caster works, and it's starting to click. This guy might actually be channeling above his level, possibly a 4-star spell. Elsewhere, Brian is busy keeping the dragon girl occupied. He's had plenty of practice raising his younger siblings, and that experience is suddenly paying off. The barrier around the arena strains under the pressure, nearly coming apart. Spectators shout for the din to step in. Though frustrated, he takes it as fuel to push himself further. He walks over, hand extended, offering mutual respect, saying he hopes they'll meet in combat again someday. Everyone knows dragons age differently than humans, but watching it unfold in real time is something else. She's still able to shield his identity, but covering for the girl is beyond her. But dragging something like this around is bound to put everyone at risk. In his previous life, he had once gone to that same den to request entry into the Knights of Light. Nothing worthwhile would come from chasing that path. Whether he faced consequences or a miserable ending, either way, he'd come out empty. But now the situation's changed, and whatever the dean thinks this time, he's about to find out. Kundal Kazel once trained Emperor Dion himself, and also taught the father of the last empress. He's never actually seen the man fight and assumed he was a peaceful figure. From his office, he waits to see how the challenger handles it. Only a capable mage could break through. He's not retracting the warning. Cyan insists on asking something first. Does the dean want to expand the empire or protect his family's legacy? He's clearly furious and calls him arrogant for pushing the question. He says Sion was a pawn for Ashel, but from where he stands, the dean isn't any better. Does he really think a century of peace is that easy to break? He thought Sion was a prodigy, but now sees nothing but a naive idiot. The dean asks what he wants from sharing all this. He says it plain. Chains wrap around Cyan, locking his movements. Then the dean stares him down. wanting to know what kind of power he thinks he holds to even dream of offering a deal like that. He looks confident, convinced Cyan won't be breaking free from a 9-star spell like the Chain of the Tower. Cyan meets his gaze, asking if he still seems useless now. The dean admits it. Back at the academy, after wrapping up his talk with the dean, Ken decides to attend his final class of the day. Class isn't over yet. He throws out the bathroom excuse, hoping to slip past, but she's not buying it. She shrugs, saying she only allows him to use her first name in private, then adds that Cyan should do the same since they're friends now. He steps forward and introduces himself as Cyan Vert, youngest heir of the Vert family. With that, they leave, dragging her pride along. Leximus looks over confused, asking if those two were really her brothers and what's wrong with them. Blood or water, it means nothing without power. That's why they treat her like that, because deep down they're afraid of her. She pauses, focuses, then says she can smell blood and it's coming from the direction he went. All because he dared act bold in front of him. Brian just laughs unshaken, telling him he's still got nothing. The S-rank mage turns his attention to Brian, who looks absolutely wrecked, barely able to speak. The mage glares down at him, asking if picking on weaker people is what he calls fun. His reputation for being twisted is well known. Beating people up was the least of his crimes. He hadn't planned a quick death. He intended to make him suffer first. But then the criminal laughed, telling him to skip the drama and just get it over with. Barrett already got what he wanted out of life before dying. Just dying won't ever come close to repaying what he's done. From a nearby rooftop, Ashel's butler has been watching everything. He's stunned. Cheyonne's power far exceeds what he expected. She's finally tracked down the stalker who's been tailing her student for days. Meanwhile, heads over to Brian, checking him for injuries. A dead loyalist is useless to him. He cuts the scolding short, telling him they'll finish this conversation back home. More people are getting suspicious. He promises to be more discreet, but he has no plans to keep playing the idiot who takes abuse from others. Before she goes, she tells him to deal with the butler and that she'll handle the situation with Barrett. The mage used to envy that loyalty in his past life. He could kill him here, but there's a better use for him. He's taking hit after hit but holding up thanks to his high stamina and brute strength. Cyan would have kept going regardless. He knows there's no telling when someone like Barrett might strike again. It hijacks a person's personality and puts them under external control. He's only used it once before back in his previous life. He pushes further, asking who his master is at the moment. Kellen says it used to be Ashel, but that's changed. Thing is, it's not that he's unwilling to talk. Sarah straight up erased his memory. His thoughts are interrupted when Nana drops from the sky, screaming his name. Apparently, Karam left her unsupervised again. Once she understands, she's clearly relieved. Nana isn't actually his daughter, and there's no secret affair with some mystery woman. He doesn't exactly have room to argue. He jokingly calls it their little secret. She smirks, teasing that maybe they should get a look at her too. He snaps back, blaming her for passing out when she was supposed to keep Nana in check. It's probably for the best. Above the academy, 2 dragons glide across the sky. He watches her with a quiet grin, clearly enjoying the sight of her having so much fun. Their moment of peace doesn't last very long though. An intense, powerful presence suddenly cuts through the air toward them. 2 dragons, clearly of high rank, step into view, Lucian and Catalina. Lucian's eyes land on Nana, filled with pure revulsion as both stare at her like she's an abomination. He blasts a beam of raw mana toward the swordsman, but it's sidestepped in an instant before he activates his demonic transformation. The dragon just manages to block the incoming blow and creates space between them for a moment. Lucian tells her to back off, warning she's no match for him, but she holds her ground, trusting that her shield, reputed as the strongest among the dragons, will be enough. Lucian is left stunned. He can't wrap his head around how a human is wielding this level of strength. He doubts a human would know anything about a dragon's weaknesses, but the swordsman leaps and lands a hit right at the center of his forehead, the core vulnerability. Kellen steps into Ashel's quarters and informs him that an unknown force seems to be backing his brother. Ashel senses a shift in his demeanor. The desperation he showed before leaving for the academy isn't there anymore. Just as he opens the door, he almost bumps into a young girl. He instantly recognizes her. She looks puzzled at first, but agrees, ready to assist however she can. Elsewhere, the dragons hold a private emergency meeting. What's alarming is that both were above 8-star rank and their mana cores were shattered. But now the rumors are piling up. Apparently, he survived a clash with a devil dragon. He turns to his granddaughter and tells her to start getting close to him. He's determined not to let anyone mess with those he considers under his protection. Ashen confesses that he's genuinely worried about her, but admits he has no idea where she's gone or what she's up to. It's fine to be honest with each other. He then asks if Ashen's brother is named Cyan. Maybe it's his way of trying to shield his daughter. Ashen advises him not to act impulsively. Ashel, who's now joined them, glances over and asks who this knight is as he doesn't recognize the man. She explains that she visited Fry. His expression shifts. He's visibly surprised. That's not a place where humans are usually welcomed. Alice tells him that she's decided to join the Knights of Light. He asks whether this means she intends to carry on her family's legacy. He reassures her that can handle himself just fine. And right then, Cyan shows up behind her. She asks if that's why he's avoided coming home for 2 years. The truth is his reasons for staying away run much deeper. Going back would be no different than signing his own death warrant. He's made up his mind to stay away until graduation. She freezes in disbelief, shocked, silent. Brian steps forward then, ready to confirm every word. Alice suddenly throws her arms around him in a tight embrace. She says he doesn't have to bottle it all up, that she'll be his shield from now on. She even hugs the Guardian as a thank you for looking after him. He throws the knight a deadly glare, simmering with jealousy over his sister. The older boy told him to stand up and keep fighting, but he had given up and told him to stop. He figures the red one's from the palace. It's sealed with the imperial crest. Considering the man is the younger brother of the reigning empress, it's no surprise Karam is stunned to hear he's attending, especially since he already has other matters lined up. Karam opens the red letter and finds it's from Princess Erin. She jokes about how he's not a kid anymore, even if he still acts like one. Suddenly, the doors slam open. Nana charges in loudly announcing that she's starving. Everyone turns to look at her, all of them stunned by what they see. She accuses her of trying to murder Tyne, causing the woman to freeze for a moment in stunned silence before muttering a question, asking if there's any proof. She screams at the guards to throw her out. Alice walks right up and says that Khan's guardian has come clean. He's confessed everything, including naming her as the one behind the assassination attempt 2 years ago. Even after all these years, Alice hasn't figured out the truth. The Duke has never cared about Cyan. Alice stares in disbelief and says his child almost died. Shouldn't he feel something? He's just an errand boy. Now she's truly confused. That would mean took out all 6 knights by himself. The newcomer is Cecilia Rain, a high-ranking member of the Knights of Light and once Alice's maid, mentor, and close friend. He reminds her to hide her tail. He doesn't want trouble. She uses magic to disguise both her tail and wings, making it easier to blend in. They're being blocked by bandits. Cyan glances at Brian and tells him to deal with it. In the office of the Halm, Sarah flips through some papers handed to her by her assistant. She's the granddaughter of the Garam Mage Association's head, Lunav Reaver. She's never made a public appearance before, so why show up now? Back in the city, Cyan, Brian, and Nana are walking through the streets of a town they've just arrived in. She looks like a predator. Dragon pupils back, radiating a strange hunger. She says she's starving and they need to act fast before someone notices her aura. He repeats the question slower this time. Eventually, she responds and introduces herself as Lunav, explaining that she attends the same school and is currently in her 2nd year. She shrugs and says that's fine. Compared to him, she's practically invisible anyway. Brian and Nana both pick up on the interaction. With a playful edge, she notes that he feels warmer than the rumors make him out to be. She tosses him a wish. Don't forget her, then she drops her full name, Donald Rayner. He can't tell if her death was from illness or the grotesque experiments the association had been running. Elsewhere, Aaron gets dressed for the occasion. She glances at Luxmus and asks if she looks okay. Finally, the banquet arrives. The atmosphere is lively. Crowds pack the place. Laughter and chatter flooding the space. But before anything else, he has something urgent to say, urging Cyan to get out of there immediately. Unexpected, that final piece falls into place. Cyan finally sees the full picture. The one pulling the strings behind the banquet of blood is Ashel himself. Mulling over what kind of stunt Ashel is cooking up now. Every passing day proves his brother is even more unhinged than he thought. What's he after? He tells her to delay the purification mission. She wants to know why. The dread's been creeping up for a while now. That scream in his head hasn't shut up. Sarah hears the voice and turns. She didn't expect to see Alice here. This wasn't part of the plan they agreed on. Cyan can tell he's getting more into this protector role lately, probably the excess dragon blood. Cyan immediately senses the presence, but before he can react, the knight leaps into action, assuming danger. He performs a ritual, issuing commands. Dozens of armed fighters begin to stir. The room is filled with shadows, ready to strike. With a dignified tone, she welcomes the girl to the event on behalf of the Empire. Are they close? That's all Lunav needs to confirm her theory. So the princess is jealous and in love. A monster has made it inside. The killer turns his head and locks eyes with her. She had declined, saying she'd rather stay and wait for him to return. He narrows his eyes and asks if she's absolutely sure, but she doesn't have any more answers. Emily wasn't supposed to be part of this timeline. Now with spies crawling around and Ashel clearly pulling strings, he sees the whole play. As she weeps, Nana senses something off. The gemstone on the bow tie radiates a faint, unsettling magic. Luel's gift is about to be delivered. Ashel gives Boris a nod of approval, calling him surprisingly effective. Then it splits. Identical copies spawn into the room. One clone grabs a guard and rips him apart before he can even scream. Then Alice appears, seamlessly entering the fight. Together, the two begin clearing out the enemies. Just before its tentacle can reach her, a guard throws himself forward and slices it off. She whispers a promise that his sacrifice will count. The creature's roots are soaked in lethal toxins. Even with her spell, the tide starts turning against them. That's when Alice steps in, releasing a freeze spell to halt the advance. Although she teaches alchemy at the academy, wielding a blade like this risks exposing her true identity. If this girl really is one of the Verts, that would make her Cyan's sister. Her gut tells her she can't handle it alone. It's a nightcrawler, a high-tier one. Alice seizes the moment already on its back. With a smirk, she launches her attack, declaring her name and promising he'll regret ever showing up. They're not living beings. They're corpses, puppets reanimated through dark magic. It's a twisted resurrection technique requiring ridiculous amounts of mana and setup. More puppet assassins flood in, relentless. They just keep coming. Emily informs Brian that Ashel has given a bow tie, but he had already left before she could hand it over. From what he's observed, Cyan harbors a deep-seated grudge against his older brother, Astral, far beyond typical sibling rivalry. Brian orders them to flee while he handles the threat. A powerful beast, a behemoth. Everyone in the room stares in shock at their display of power, curious about who they are, but there's no time for introductions. Lunav reassures her not to worry and promises to recover quickly. She warns that the next assault will begin soon and that Iron needs to evacuate. They must hold the line until the battle ends. The Royal Knight's priority is the prince's safety. She places her full trust in him as a monster charges. He prepares to block the attack, warning her to stay behind him and not stray. He parries every blow, matching the monster's ferocity blow for blow. Emily asks if he's okay. She seems transformed like a different person. Meanwhile, Aaron and Alice continue battling the remaining marionettes. If someone can wield it, they might have a chance to turn the tide. She proceeds to bless the sword with the blessing of light. Although combining two mana types is difficult, the princess channels the blessing of light into the blade. On the other side, Cyan had already eliminated most of the marionettes in his path, and quickly realized these enemies were nothing more than puppets and mandrakes. He acknowledged her observation and mentioned there was a particular individual who frequently wielded it. Suddenly, the spirit spoke, questioning why the girl was willing to sacrifice herself. She confessed she hadn't found any other way to defeat the enemies. Still, the enemies kept rising repeatedly. Aaron pleaded with her to stop before she died from overexertion, but the mage understood that stopping now would only worsen their plight. Unable to move an inch, she looked at her captor, initially thinking him another marionette. Although he attacked, if he took even a small step back, all the enemies gravitated toward the princess's group. As if irresistibly drawn, he asked Karam if she sensed any mana around the group. Using his creation space technique, he enveloped the entire room in a fog domain. It was as if nothing had occurred. Both parties were intrigued and amused, wondering who the masked man could be. He urged them to exit through the front gates, assuring the path was cleared. She silently resolved that ensuring the children's safety was her top priority, leaving the mystery of the masked man's identity for later. Emily was horrified, questioning if the girl was really a maid. Brian shared her confusion, having never seen her act like this before. Her disdain ran deep. She even considered humans worse than demons. He responded that this was nothing compared to the atrocities they would commit later. He replied that Nana was probably waiting, and that the knights should handle the palace mess. Brian stepped in to shield the girl, but was no match for the little one's ferocity. Emily grabbed the bow tie from Nana and destroyed it instantly. Karam shouted at the girl to snap out of it, reminding her that her father was here. Both expressed relief that the crisis was resolved, but sensed something was off. The Emperor heard Aaron's voice calling out. Aaron's contempt for her deepened. She had countless questions, but prioritized tending to the others first. He declared knowledge of her identity as the granddaughter of the Garam Mage Association president, and demanded her arrest. He consented, though Aaron voiced frustration. Luel remained uncertain whether this was a trap or part of her grandfather's design. Funerals took place openly on the streets. Cyan had prevented far more deaths than in his past life. She remarked on how dangerous the situation had been, and was grateful he had escaped alive. She claimed it had been given to her. Cyan suggested whoever gave her the bracelet should be a suspect. Cyan understood this wasn't about the investigation. Ashel was setting him up as a scapegoat. Alice steps in without missing a beat, backing him up. She reminds Ashel how much he's already been through, and adds that the doctor's advice was clear. Cyan stays on alert even once he's gone. Alice forcibly pushes him to lie down, insisting he rest whether he likes it or not. She doesn't even know what the thing does. Her voice cracks as she begs for her life. It snarls, then starts tearing the body apart, erasing the evidence. Far out in a secluded forest, Emily and Brian lie low in a quiet wooden house, far from any eyes. He says Cyan gave clear instructions. They're staying put until told otherwise. There's no timeline. Now back on the forest bench, Emily glances over, asking if Nana's all right. Their eyes meet, and something unspoken passes between them. Together, they quietly make a pact. The prince snaps, dripping contempt. How's he supposed to rule the whole continent with that kind of weakness? They're just a monster. Luel tries to pivot, redirecting the topic back to the suspects. He's known his son long enough to know that once he wants something he doesn't let go. He slams open her door with heavy, furious steps. Inside, Leximus immediately steps between them, warning him that Princess Arin is resting. But before it escalates, Arin interrupts, voice steady. She tells him to cut the nonsense and asks why he's really here. The silence drags and she answers before he can recover. She hasn't received anything from him. These stones were used to manipulate outlawed magic. Most despise them now, but rumors claim they can command monsters. Both were now dead or missing. Shock flickered across her face. Dion pressed again. He remains quiet, still thrown off, but doesn't deny it. This was what he came for. From the far end of the room, Cyan steps into view. He's been standing there the whole time, silent, unreadable, not making a sound. But doesn't react, not even slightly. He moves to stand beside Arin and unfazed, asks if Luel plans to come at him next. Now that the misunderstanding is cleared up, he says he'll be on his way. The knight, still stiff from the punch, apologizes back for what he said. Once Luel's gone, Leximus mutters that he's a piece of mess. He just glances over, unbothered, and asks if he's not allowed to sit there now. Ashel was supposed to be the shining hope of the Yusuf Empire, and now everything's falling apart. Boris explains that Ashel had sent him out on an errand. He also brings news. It's not about reflection. It's about facing the evidence. Inside the crystal, faint traces of mana swirl. He declines. If he sticks around, Ashel might find him, and that would put all of them in danger. He tells them he'll be back later, then heads out. Just as he steps outside Saraka, the hall marks his path. His answer will decide what comes next. Depending on what he says, she'll either mark him as an ally or label him a threat. Drenian, her fiancé, was bound for purification regardless. It shouldn't matter. She doesn't buy that and suggests he might actually be part of another faction, one that's been spying on them. She narrowly twists out of the way, and everything the attack touches is obliterated behind her. Their standoff resets, eyes locked, both poised to strike again, but Cyan cuts in first. He steps inside the small house, ready to tell them the plan, only to freeze at the sight of Lunav, sitting casually at the table with the others. She can even trace a person's unique mana signature, a gift passed down from her grandfather. Emily lights up when he says they're going back to Luon Academy. Finally, she'll get to look after him every single day. So she presses, then why save them? Why wear a mask while doing it? So, she asks him what exactly is it. He figures out why she's really here and asks if she plans on handing that information over to her grandfather. Her body had become a volatile mess, like a boiling pot overloaded with all types of mana. In his eyes, she looked like someone else's pawn, and that hit a nerve because she reminded him of who he used to be. But that's not what's eating at him. She still hasn't returned home. He orders them to track her down and bring her back no matter what. Curious about her enthusiasm, he looks over and asks what's gotten her in such a good mood. He explains that the headmaster might allow it just for him, though he's definitely not in favor of the idea. Trying to find a quick deal, Cyan offers to never skip class again, hoping it would be enough to win him over, but the man isn't impressed. However, there is one thing he's absolutely sure of. Although his reaction shows skepticism, he doesn't press further. The conversation ends on a relatively positive note. From what he knows, it couldn't possibly have been Luel. Too sloppy for something that precise. Cyan doesn't even acknowledge him. He just walks past and enters his room without a word. He immediately shuts her down, telling her not to feed Brian anything again ever. Opening it, the first thing that catches his attention is that it's from Lunav. The woman responds without flinching, telling him not to worry about her having regrets. Back with Cyan, he grabs her by the arm and drags her out of the town toward a bench just outside the city. What she just described goes way beyond basic analysis. She can dissect and reproduce magic instantly. 2 dragons affiliated with them suddenly went missing near the Luan region. On top of that, some smugglers transporting illegal goods from other countries were recently found dead. But now she knows for sure. Cyan hadn't realized the dragons were tied to the association in the first place. If she's lucky, the best-case scenario is 3 years left to live, all thanks to his help. Getting up, he tells her it's not his problem, and she should go back to where she came from. Something feels off. She points out that it's always Victor who comes to pick her up, not a bunch of unfamiliar guards. Without hesitation, she unleashes a gust of wind, using the brief distraction to bolt away. Meanwhile, Karam glances at Cyan and quietly mentions she's picking up signs of fighting nearby, clearly referring to those fake guards. Screams erupt from the guards as they're cut down in seconds. The whales reach inside the chapel and the teacher calls out, ordering Ralph to go out and eliminate whoever's responsible. Ralph storms out of the church and lunges at him, striking without a word. Cheyenne stares her down and asks if she's the last one left and what her reason was for taking Luna. His first demand, who ordered the kidnapping, and how many more are involved. She breaks into a twisted laugh and tells him they'll come find him soon enough. It must be the effect of a heart curb. That's a special artifact that traps mana in the heart, preventing it from circulating. Cyan, voice low and cruel, tells her she'll get her answer in hell. He drives his hand into her abdomen and tears out a stone pulsing with magic. Karam quietly asks what he plans to do with the artifact. Now he tells her to bring Lunav to him. She turns toward him and questions what exactly he's planning. He responds plainly that he figured she might still be useful later on. She waves it off like it's nothing, and he cuts the chat short, saying, "It's time to move out." She stands by that explanation, but he doesn't look convinced. He tells her the kingdom's already in chaos. Not after what happened to her. The man drops to his knees, pleading for his life, insisting it's all a mistake and begging for a second chance. Riggins turns to her and explains that the butler was one of the people who ordered her capture. She tells him she was up late that night to meet Cyan. Their conversation didn't reveal anything special. Then he cuts off her questioning. She's a Rain Reaver by blood. She doesn't need reasons, just orders. She's supposed to be a consultant in this house. Back at Luan Academy, some buff dude's been loitering on top of Cyan's dorm roof for a while. Apparently, classes have been cancelled for days and one of the teachers is missing. They were about to make a move, but he handled everything before they could even act. She figures the recruitment flyers are already out. Somewhere in the countryside, Boris is riding with a local farmer. The farmer connects the dots quickly. He wants to be the new teacher at Luan. She forcibly kicks her off the seat. Cyan steps into the room mid-chaos and calls her over. Karam asks where they're headed. He tells her, Southwest Ushif Empire, Lambaster, Lamister, a city built on blood, corruption and coin. Their size difference is almost absurd, yet both are locked in, focused, and ready to kill. The crowd goes absolutely feral, screaming his name as the victor. Karam and Cyan make their way through the grimy streets of Lam. They barely get a sentence out before he tells them to back off. Cut to moments later. The waitress raises a brow, shocked by how young he looks, and casually asks his age. He knows immediately they're going down to the cage under the hotel. He needs to move fast. Even she looks surprised at how fast she reacted, confused that some kid with coins could radiate such intense killing intent. Annoyed now, disgusted, he tells her she has to take responsibility. Backed into a corner, she finally agrees to let him into the cage. If he wears it, it should protect him while he's down there. She asks just how bad it's going to get. He tells her she'll find out soon enough. At first, the leader laughs, thinking they're joking, but they double down. This kid isn't normal. He asks if the kid's from any noble family. They shrug. No idea. One of them pleads, calling out for help and referring to the man in charge as Mr. Linda Weasley stands victorious, having just finished off another opponent. He watches silently from the shadows. Cyan stepping into the ring to square off against Zarbark. Lauder mixes with disbelief. He casually raises one thick finger to squash the kid like a bug. Cyan launches off the ground, lands right on it, and snaps the finger in half. Then the silence bursts. Cheers erupt. They chant his alias over and over. Lami Simon Karam leans in and asks what name he gave them. That's the spell at work, erasing all trace of his identity. From the shadows, Gunther watches everything unfold. He wants to fight him. Cyan is next target, and he won't stop until they face off in that cage. Delia doesn't back down, threatening violence and saying the incident happened on Lisa's turf, so she's not stepping aside. It hits her like a drug. For a second the world drops away. All she sees is him. He shrugs it off, telling her he's got it handled. The blonde slips him a business card, voice dipping to a flirt-heavy tone. With that, she struts out of the hotel, still under his spell. Once she's gone, Lisa immediately scolds him. The cage owner narrows her eyes, saying she heard Lisa even gave him advice. Linsa swings her gaze to the fighter, eyes sharp and deadly, and demands to know why he showed up solo in her domain. Lisa cuts in, reminding them both that he got kicked out years ago. Linda looks at him and asks who he plans to fight. She's pacing, yelling, something's wrong. Her attendants are growing nervous. One whispers that she meant to seduce Cyan, but now she's the one completely undone. Booze, women, and high-stakes games. The red light districts of Lombasa are notorious for indulging every vice imaginable. He needs to investigate other regions for any trace of Linsa. As he cuts through a crowded alleyway, He bumps into a young girl and accidentally knocks her off her feet. Crouching down, he helps her gather her things, a bundle of cigarette packs scattered across the dirt, and asks if she is hurt. Realizing she can't go back until the entire batch is sold. From behind, Karam shows up and smirks, asking if he's sure he isn't a charity foundation disguised as an assassin. They yell at her, calling her a liar and threatening to teach her a lesson. On the ground and whimpering, one asks why he's doing this, and he grabs him by the leg, saying he likes short bursts of torture, especially for creeps like them, before snapping the man's leg. Before she can thank him, a slow clap breaks through the silence as Gunther steps out from the shadows, grinning and calling it a performance. Seeing perfect timing for questions, he figures Gunther may have answers. The name catches his attention, and without warning, he throws a punch. Gunther blocks it, smiling wider. His tone is curious, not angry, saying he isn't here to scold her, but that she's pulled into something personal. Uru seems intrigued. Back in the alley, Cyan peels himself off the ground after taking Gunther's full force and surviving. The impact sends the man skidding backward again and again, barely able to hold his ground. Before either can land the next blow, a voice cuts through the chaos. Lisa's arrived. He tries to defend himself, claiming Cyan started it, but she isn't in the mood to entertain excuses. Once he's gone, Lisa turns to check if Cyan's okay. His expression says enough. Over the next several days, he drifts around the area, occasionally stepping into a fight. Both Cyan and Gunther are informed there are no rules for this fight, the change made by personal request of the owner. The match begins. The crowd roaring louder with each passing second, the arena buzzing with tension. Cyan grabs his arm, moves like a shadow, then without hesitation slices it clean off. The crowd chanting his name, electrified by what they just saw, but not everyone's cheering for the same reason. After the match, Cyan can't shake the feeling that someone wanted him in the dark about the no-rules twist. She's already started working, serving drinks as an assistant at the bar. He notices her name tag Louis and figures that must be her name. The man introduces himself as Morris, representing the Gru Merchant Union, and wastes no time. The merchant isn't buying it, saying there's no reason to keep up the act and that all he's interested in is the sword. With that, he turns and exits, security detail flanking him. Cyan's thoughts drift to the Gru Merchant Union. People nearby try to calm him down, telling him to stop moving before his injury tears open again. Louis, Cyan's taken a liking to her, looked out for her. Maybe she's the key. She hesitates, then nods, yes. He doesn't drop the smile and says he needs her help with something. And so was the rule change. Then she gets serious, saying if he's smart, he'll leave fast because staying might get him killed. What they find is chaos. Tables flipped, walls cracked, and a massive hole blown through the side of the building. He turns to Lisa and tells her to stay put for a while. She protests, saying he doesn't even know who took her. He looks her over like she's something pathetic. She recognizes him instantly and asks what he wants. With this, he says she can have completely helpless. She takes the vial, expression unreadable, and asks what it'll cost. He turns to leave, adding that he doesn't care who gets it done. He just needs Cyan out of the picture, and ideally Gunther handles it first. The rest of the body inside the crate he's sitting on. Cyan stares at the severed ear, barely breathing. Linz chuckles under her breath and says if she's that curious, she'll ease her mind. Linz smiles and tells her it's a side effect of one of Eru's divine powers, one of the authorities of the god of fog. The other woman waves it off, saying no, not danger. They're just about to receive a guest worth keeping, and she plans to treat him right. The ground is scattered with bones. Human bones. The brawler sees his look and grins, explaining it like it's nothing, saying he's been digging up corpses of people who were worthless to him. He recounts how he'd fight off anyone who tried to take advantage of them, clawing, biting, punching, whatever it took. Blood everywhere, bodies stacked like waste. The guy's name was Ashel. He recalls how the stranger walked toward them afterward, smiling, saying everything was fine now. That was the last straw for Lisa, who cut ties. Didn't bother him though. And if Gunther wants a shot at breaking through, he'd better push harder. The other man doesn't hesitate. Gunther smirks and names it a gravity chamber. He activates the relic and a field slams down around Cyan. The impact rattles the entire zone, scrap metal bursting from the ground as dozens of shards pierce his body. Rules set by the one in charge. Blood fills his mouth, but he asks for one last thing for Cyan to stop that from happening. She sees the corpse but doesn't react much, instead ordering her team to check on Cyan. She asks where he's headed. He rises, setting Lizzie down gently, and says he's got something to clean up. If this were just a regular state, they could storm in with force, but that option's off the table. They just need to show up at the right moment to claim it. Cyan eyes him skeptical, wondering how he can be so sure. But this time he isn't here to observe it rot. He's here to rip it out from the roots. A crooked smile stretches across her face. Finally, she's got him. Now he belongs to her. Wasting the gravity chamber on Nanterre left a bitter aftertaste. He went through hell to get that from the Garum Association. But with captured, the demonic sword is as good as his. Even though they're just doing their job, their eagerness annoys him. He suspects they're after the sword too. Bodies all stuffed and propped up clutter the room. At the center lies another Delia, bloodied, beaten, unconscious. A voice rises behind him. Cyan, he says Morris knows too much to walk away. Black shadows swirl around Morris, creeping up as they begin devouring him alive. Cyan calmly tells him he knows about the artifacts given to Gunther and the paralysis mixed to Delulkia. The shadows drag his body into a limitless sea, drowning him alongside his guards. An instant later, the surroundings twist and he finds himself in a different space. This is the one he was supposed to purify. And it turns out she's part of the mist. But danger spikes as he catches an attack just in time and knocks it away. Suddenly, she reappears behind him and speaks, saying he could have ended her just now. He furrows his brow, genuinely confused how she even knows that much about Sira, and wonders aloud what kind of relationship they had. Dozens of blades materialize and shoot toward him, but he dodges all of them, moving like wind through thread. The moment she drops, it's just him and Linsa standing alone in this artificial fog dimension. But what really makes it worse is that she's both a traitor and a thief. She used it to fake her identity as a mist. He smirks, ridiculing her without holding back, calling her nothing but a knockoff, a fraud wearing borrowed power that pisses her off. Linsa freezes completely, eyes wide in shock. She just watched someone slice open her domain like it was made of paper. With a calm, vicious glint, Kira playfully asks how many parts Linsa wants to be cut into. She insists it's impossible. 300 years and now some random kid shows up. He doesn't flinch. He grabs Kira, shifting her into weapon form instantly, and with a grin, comments that she's way too sloppy to ever pass as a decent assassin. Before she can even get a breath, the sphere launches toward her. Flashback, years earlier at the Temple of Black Fog. The priestess calmly denies it, saying there are far worse people in the world and no reason to kill her yet. She offers a farewell and says to stay decent, as if they were still friends. Using her own fog, he dissolves what's left of her body in silence. No one sees their downfall coming, not hers, not even his. Lisa breaks the silence, asking why he let her live. After all, she had tried to kill him and clearly knew far too much about the mist. Bewildered, she asks what she's meant to do now. Before he can respond, the door bursts open and Louise rushes in, calling out her name in a panic. Lisa silently nods in understanding. He bends down and pats Lucy on the head, telling her to listen to Lisa's guidance. He heads back to the Fog Temple to follow up on Sira's mission regarding Lind. He asks about her past connection to Lind and whether she was ever part of the mist. She says she was only keeping a promise and that most people eventually break under the ring's power. Sira grins slightly, saying she's simply watching to see whether he becomes a menace to humanity or a hero. With instructor Nella's sudden disappearance, student anxiety has risen. He acknowledges the weight the new appointee carries, but expresses faith in him. A moment later, Sira enters the office, apologizing for being late. She was responding to the dean's earlier summons. Even Aaron is taken aback. She had heard the guard force had expanded since the banquets of blood, but this is excessive, overwhelming even. Aaron, being modest, returns the compliment, saying her friend has done a lot for her too. She greets him with a polite smile, mentioning she's heard quite a bit about him. His expression darkens, eyes sharp as blades, fixed on the instructor. In a low threatening voice, he asks why the hell he's in Lewin. They scrambled to regroup, trying to re-establish order in the chaos, but the enemy pressure didn't let up. Though they had believed he'd been deployed to the Western Front, the stories were true. He had assumed Cyan was stationed in the rear lines, same as him, but had come north after hearing this front needed reinforcements, only to find the situation already wrapped up. The monsters seized that moment of vulnerability and began their advance, resulting in an unbroken war ever since. Cyan assumed Luel had sent him too, but the other man corrected him, saying it was his skill set that got him picked. He wouldn't let himself slip up again, which was exactly why giving mana access to someone like Boris was a terrible idea. Boris tried to smooth things over, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. As a newly appointed instructor, he'd only meant to assess student aptitude. Cyan gave a curt nod accepting the apology but telling him to get lost before things got worse. Cyan released Arin's hand and muttered an apology for snapping, but she brushed it off, saying she understood and trusted he was on her side. He smirked, teasing that he thought she liked being cooked for. She shot back that it felt like her job had been yanked out from under her. Her claymore nearly as tall as she was, moving like it weighed nothing. Cyan wasn't shocked. First strike was hers. She hesitated. She had a real blade. He was holding wood. He told her to stop holding back, to come at him like she actually meant to kill him. The spar ended with her on the floor, and his sword aimed straight at her face, making it clear who the winner was. He reassured her right away, saying she had skill. Real rare skill. Not everyone could handle that kind of sword, especially not as smoothly as she did. She nodded, saying she'd bring a wooden sword next time so they could get to work. Then he spotted her, Lunav, standing dead center on academy grounds beneath the night sky, unmoving. She'd never heard the guy's name before, not even once in the entire Garam Mage Association. It felt like he already knew Boris, maybe even hated him a little enough to get involved. They could keep poking around the lab. He narrowed his eyes, confused by her sudden departure. She muttered that it was already about to emerge. She called to it Hearth Kriya. She snapped, lunging at him, but he calmly held up a hand, telling her to relax. His face shifted immediately. He slammed the book shut and told her they had to destroy it now. Too caught up in the book's danger. He apologized, sounding almost sincere, saying Cyan didn't need to worry, she was fine. That meant she was already on the losing side. She didn't blink, didn't care, saying she was a demonic sword, not one of Luminal's lackeys. She laughed low and sharp, calling the idea stupid and asking what half-baked schemes they were even trying to run this time. Just like all the others, it's been 300 years since the war between gods and demons reached its final blow. She doesn't take it well, swiping at his face with disgust and calling his whole pitch complete hearth a sigh, clearly disappointed. They just handled their own crisis and dumped the rest on others. He had hoped talking to her would be as smooth as it was with Eru, but clearly not. He doesn't bother responding, cutting straight to it and asking why the man said he was so interested in him. Boris casually asks if the dean or his father, the duke, know about that. But Cyan sees through it. He's lying, he always has been. Even in a past life he buried his origin deep, refusing to let anyone in. Once leaves, Boris speaks to Hearth Kriya, saying he got so caught up in the moment that he couldn't even think of the right words. It's Karam who's supporting him, maybe he is the darkness they've been waiting for. He tells her there's nowhere lower than where he's already fallen, he has nothing left to lose. She asks him if he's really not going to act himself, if something happened between him and Lumin. She's kneeling as a proxy of Luminal, pledging herself to the great god of light. Maybe it's somewhere else. A voice cuts in. Someone congratulates her from behind, Cecilia. Alice bows politely, saying she still sees her as a senior and should show respect. The screams from that day, the ones begging for help, still haunt her. Nana, sounding unsure, asked if this meant they wouldn't see him for a while. At the sound of the name, Emily's expression shifted. She recognized it instantly. It was the same place they had visited last time. This was the day Alice was supposed to die. Meanwhile, Alice and Cecilia had finally made it to the front lines. She remained modest, replying that she still had a lot to learn. Sliding down from her horse, she mentioned the Duke was waiting for them now. The second princess, Violet Seas, offered thanks for all their efforts. The Duke stepped forward, introduced himself properly, and greeted the royals. The Duke reassured him that the creatures stationed at the rear were minor threats at best. Fabian gave him direct orders to wipe the enemies out before they even got close. His stare carried a chilling, almost violent intensity, and he congratulated her. The look unsettled her. Years passed, and once she gained her 4th star of mana, she recalled the scroll and prepared to activate it. Her suspicions about him only kept growing. The royal convoy along with their army escort began moving toward the battlefield. They needed to get out now. The attack came from a rare creature, a Sar. The barrier gave just enough time for the princesses to escape. She couldn't believe it. Right then, Cecilia arrived, launching her Wind Blossom spell to drive the monster back briefly. She shouted his name, telling him to watch out. A barrier flared up around Ashel, launching the monster backward with force. Before Alice could react, a blade drove straight into her body. Cecilia had attacked from behind. She had suspected something was off the moment she learned Lowell wasn't attending, especially given how obsessed he was with being part of everything. She mocked the idea of sitting still and waiting to be executed like a fool. She whispered that she had to pull it together. This wasn't where she was going to die. The princess looked much more at ease now. Cecilia was quiet, clearly trying to mentally erase any trace of Alice or their shared past. The monsters would finish the job for them. Back in the field, Alice was holding her own, fending off the creatures with what little strength she had left. The beast hit the ground hard, molten lava bursting from its body on impact. Before the flames could reach, Karam appeared, summoning a lava wall to shield them. Once the chaos had cleared, she stepped toward him. She'd suspected the truth for a while now, but seeing it confirmed in front of her hit hard. He cut in, telling her none of this was on her. The blame sat squarely on Cecilia, Violet, and Ashel. She stared, puzzled, asking why someone would go that far for his sake. Cyan told her flatly it was so Ashel could be the one to shape the family's legacy as he saw fit. She looked up, voice low, asking if he was absolutely certain about Ashel. She'd thought she was the only one who'd sensed something was off, but Cyan had noticed too. During the earlier fight, something had felt wrong, like an unseen force was shielding him. His tone shifted serious now. He told her to trust him. If she acted recklessly and things went sideways, the entire Knights of Light could turn on them. People treated him like a messiah, never doubting a word he spoke. But looking back now, Cyan couldn't help but think something about that had always felt off. Not a shred of doubt. Cyan had clung to that trust too, right until the end. Then Ashel appeared, cutting in just in time to shield them. The dragon launched another strike, but he raised the shield of judgment, blocking the blast for everyone behind him. Even the princesses started singing his praises. Alice stared, stunned. She couldn't wrap her head around it. She'd risked turning the whole Church of Luminal against her. A weight settled behind her eyes, a slow sinking disappointment. She didn't hesitate. First she had to deal with this mess. That meant finding Cecilia. Someone was getting close. Violet scoffed. No one else knew about this place. They didn't even have time to blink before a blade whirled through the air, narrowly missing the princess's throat. He picked up the remnants of a magic scroll and immediately suspected it had been used for teleportation. But in the end he was just a kid. Still something felt off, like someone else was backing him up. She barked out a question asking where the hell he'd learned to move like that. She thought to herself that only a handful in the Knight's Order could keep pace with her, and this kid was managing it. The fact that he didn't even bother made her snap. Her temper flared and she lunged from behind, gripping a jagged rock, going straight for his blind spot. Was Mr. Leximus still alive? He dropped to one knee, eyeing her curiously. He asked what kind of expression that was. A voice rang out across the space asking, "Justice for what exactly?" Alice stepped into view. Eyes locked on her, asking how she could do it, how she could betray her. She wanted to know why she'd lied all this time. Years back her village, just a nameless dot on the map, was wiped out by monsters. From that moment it felt obvious. When someone saves your life, you owe them yours in return. And through that, she got to know Alice. But now, looking back at it all, she wasn't sure it had been worth it. Violet had pulled her aside and given the command, "Kill Alice." She was labeled a threat. And the worst part, Alice had trusted her the entire time. And in return, all she had done was betray that trust. This wasn't a minor offense. She shut her eyes, ready to take whatever came next. She immediately demanded to know who dared to break in, calling out for Cecilia. She suddenly realized she had no idea when the girl had disappeared. She threw it back at him. There was no way in hell he could walk away from something like that without consequences. He answered with a shrug of uncertainty. Maybe, maybe not. Her eyes scanned the room, and that's when she spotted Cecilia's blade jammed into the wall. Then she flipped the question back. What now? Was he here to avenge her? She wasn't like Prince Lu and all, not even close. That rattled her. She stared wide-eyed, unsure how he could talk about his own sister like it meant nothing. She sat down on the edge of the bed, skeptical, not buying it. He answered without blinking. His real mission was bigger. Wipe out evil completely. Strip it from every corner of the world. Was it bloodlust? It sure felt like it. Whatever it was, he'd never sensed anything like it before. Ashel threw up a mana barrier around her, shielding her from the fight and moved her away from the destruction as the safe house started to tear apart. Ashel followed up with an Escalon incantation, slicing the manosphere clean in two. The split protected them both briefly. Karam let out a guttural scream like something had just torn straight through her. Cecilia's sword and her bloodied shield. Violet reacted immediately, demanding to know what he did to her. He didn't do this because he was told to. He did it because it had to be done. The mist had been sabotaging him from the beginning. Later, far from the battlefield, Karam was still curled up in pain. Even if they wanted to take him down, they couldn't touch him. And this was way more tangled than she ever imagined. Access to the spirit realm was tightly controlled, but with it, she would be able to enter Fina without issue. Cecilia nodded, understanding the severity, and said she would be going now. Without another word, she left immediately. Reflecting on it, he realized it wasn't necessary. She was already shattered by the guilt of killing his sister. Karam kept watching him, asking if he was unwell or something, noting how unexpectedly soft he had become lately. Perhaps it wasn't so bad after all. She laughed softly and asked if Karam was close with Cyan. At the academy, Dean Kendall received a message from Cecilia. She explained she had uncovered answers to all her questions and decided to leave the Knights of Light. Boris replied that he was slowly adapting. The teen leaned in serious, asking what purpose he actually had there. Boris answered that he was searching for someone. Kendall's aura darkened ominously. Boris felt the threat but respected his determination. Suddenly, Hallmaster Sira answered his summons, asking why he wanted to meet. Boris thanked her for coming. He said that initially, yes, he was just interested in Cyan, but now he was curious about those around him too. Inside the beast, she managed to slice through its insides and break free. Using fog powers, she conjured a domain that enveloped them both. Sira smirked, admitting she didn't know how he uncovered her true identity, but this revelation would cost him his life. She had grown noticeably larger since the last time he saw her. Nana had held up remarkably well, having slain countless monsters during her training. Karam stepped forward and revealed it was purification. Sira had been ordered to purify Boris. His bloodline was the real danger here. He instructed Brian to handle things in his absence, and the man reassured him not to worry. He promised to return once the situation was under control, but made it clear he was leaving everything else in Brian's hands for now. She finally realized the banquets of blood had been orchestrated by him. These marionettes carried the same aura as those involved in the banquets, but these were significantly stronger. The number of marionettes continued to swell, and her ability to dodge diminished rapidly. Exhausted and weakened, she left herself open for an attack. He called upon the scripture to summon a massive warhammer and launched it directly at her. She finally understood. The marionettes could track an opponent's mana. These weren't ordinary puppets. What new kind of mana was she tapping into? The demon swung a massive arm, crushing countless marionettes in its path. But it was a temporary shield. Now she was drained of mana herself, and even casting a simple spell would be nearly impossible. She unleashed a rapid barrage of strikes, slowly eroding the shield until it shattered. She detonated the ground beneath them, propelling both into the air. She snapped into a defensive stance and noticed black blood trickling from his mouth. The Black Blood tribe had originally created both, and he was the one who massacred them. She and the demon combined their assault on his protection. But even together, they couldn't break through until a portal tore open inside the domain. The shield surrounding Boris intensified, expanding in size and power, forcefully throwing Sira out of the immediate area. Boris offered to assist in defeating him, pointing out that the demonic sword's wielder was right before them and must be eliminated immediately. He finally grasped that the black fog shrouding the sun symbolized Cyan. But at the last moment, Sira arrived just in time to rescue him, unleashing the secret technique called Unified Demonic Human Form. The purification mission had failed. Cyan rose to his feet, questioning why she had intervened, and she told him she had saved his life. He promised himself that when the real battle came, he would have no choice but to use that weapon. She asked if he knew anything about the man. He replied he wasn't entirely sure, then asked what she would think if Ashel became the household head. The dean nodded, adding that Luinal, his grandson, would probably command the knights alongside him. It was as if Cyan had foreseen the future. The dean admitted he hadn't been cautious enough about what they might do, his face darkening. She asked what disaster he meant, and he warned that a coup d'état was brewing. She noticed only Brian and Emily were present and realized Nana was missing. Their hearts sank. At Berna's harbor, a ship slipped away from the dock. The elf confirmed they were ready to depart. She pointed toward the distance, shouting that she smelled something familiar there. Instantly, they recognized a chance for easy profit and tried to lure her aboard by promising candy and food. The elf and werewolf exchanged smiles, feeling lucky to have claimed another prize. Her eyes scanned the basement, but no candy appeared. She reached out, gently patting his head, asking how he ended up here and if he wanted to be freed. He commended them, saying departure from the harbor was all that remained. The man introduced himself as Red Ganon, Merchant Unit Chief Executive Officer Toino. They had a null champion backing them. As they spoke, a pig exploded on the horizon, emerging from the ship. She pointed at all of them, accusing them of being liars and bad adults. She quickly ran toward him, wielding a hammer that smashed down and destroyed the ground beneath her. He swung his sword again, and she backed away, dodging all their attacks. He screamed, asking how they couldn't defeat a little kid, insisting he was big enough to win against her. His heart dropped when he realized the shackles had been broken and he no longer had control over it. He smiled upon seeing them. Then she said goodbye as they parted ways. Now she missed Cyan even more after witnessing this wholesome scene. But she warned that if they didn't, she would simply eat them. They complied, having no other choice, and took the children to their respective homes. However, he couldn't ignore the immense mana radiating right now. Suddenly, Brian and the others finally reached the place, expressing relief that Nana was okay. The dean entered the estate with servants bowing respectfully to him. The blonde man asked what had brought him here, referring to him as his father. But he has asked how the fees for the estate have dropped so drastically, while the funds being sent to the emperor's family have increased so significantly. Rising from his seat, he says he will be heading to the palace. Meanwhile, Vilius from the third estate has been standing by his coffee table reading a letter. Her eyes full of resentment suggest she probably knows something, and that has been starting to get on his nerves. Boris has apologized for it, saying he had not meant to reveal this form of himself. Still, he warns it is not the time yet. Since the followers of the Black Fog are with Cyan, the situation has become difficult to predict. Kellen has been surprised to hear mention of the sword, and has felt the need to report this to Cyan immediately. Meanwhile, Lunav has been reading many books, but has not found what she is looking for. The divine scripture and the demonic scripture. It has seemed more like the divine scripture, but why would something like that be in his lab? Arin has smirked and asked if she has missed him. Lunav has disagreed, but admitted it feels strange that he suddenly stopped coming to school, her face turning pale like white bread. Suddenly, Leximus has entered the room, saying there is a big problem and handing her a letter, telling her it is from the palace and she needs to read it. She is frozen as she reads those words, her cheeks burning bright red. Continuing to read. Violet quickly rises to her feet, excusing herself so they can speak in private. The visitor asks how long his condition has been this bad, and the ruler replies, it started out feeling like a cold, but has not gotten better in the slightest. He locks eyes with him, expression sharpening, and asks if this is about Luinol, already seeming to know what is going on. His guest tells him not to worry as she is sharp, driven, and packed with talent, and she will grow into a solid ruler. For that reason he has decided to have them marry. The dean offers a knowing smile which surprises him, who figured that would be news. In all his 5 decades of teaching, Sion is the worst student he has ever had. She barely glances at him, saying he should go see for himself and ask them directly. He snaps, asking what that is even supposed to mean. She grabs his face without warning, gripped tight, leaning in, and says she thought he, of all people, would understand. He slaps her hand away, warning her to shut up if she does not have proof, then turns on his heel and storms off, announcing he will get answers directly, and next time she should learn to keep her mouth shut. The question is, who and how much does Violet know, and what is she plotting? The moment she sees him, she grabs her noisy companion and hauls him out. That would be gross. She smirks, but says nothing. He notices a pile of books spread out over the table, and asks what they are for. He points at one of the books, asking if she has read that one. Those names are supposed to be tightly held secrets, known only to a select inner circle within the Garum Mage Association. The mage steps forward, bowing her head, explaining she was ordered not to leave Lunav alone under any circumstances. How many people within the association would even recognize those names? Lamala admits barely anyone. Message received. Lunav turns her focus back to him, planning to question him herself. Guess he's on his own for this one. Then a voice breaks his thoughts. Seth's finally lost his mind. He tries to leave. He doesn't have time for this right now. He stood no chance. Blacked out mid-fight, came to with no injuries, must have bolted on instinct. Seth admits he doesn't know the ruin's exact name, but the region, it was called Nordeli. Sion actually wants to go on an adventure. If he kept working hard, one day he'd find a friend who'd go on an adventure with him. So, that's what Lunav meant when she asked if he loved her. He sighed. Her only question, does this mean she's finally getting a mom? Brian nearly chokes, yelling, wait, is he really planning to defy a direct order from the Emperor? He won't drag Arin into that kind of ending. Then, without another word, he shuts the door behind him. Their destination lies to the north. They're flying, literally on a magic carpet Seth calls Alama. The path still clear in his mind. All they need to do is get through that dust storm up ahead. Looks like they made it through the dust wall intact. Seth's awake too. No injuries, just groggy. They murmur about heading in and staying sharp. The group halts at an entrance, some sort of door covered in old inscriptions. The strangers dodge cleanly, unfazed, demanding to know who the hell he is. He stands tall, states his title, Prince of Sparnia, then flips it, asking who they are and what they're doing here. They clock who both of them are. Now that they know these two are aware of the ruins, they say there's no way they can be allowed to leave. His hand moves, sand rises, and a defensive mold catches the incoming mana, flips it, and launches it back. She turns to the mage, asking how he's holding up. He skips the pleasantries, grilling her about how she even knows this place exists. Seer is trying to explain, saying it's a polymorph spell, meaning the girl's nearing dragon maturity. Brian shrugs, having no clue. She leaves Ned behind and pulls the door shut. No way they believe that. He doubles down, saying he's serious and offering to guide them in. The group readies for battle. Lamala steps ahead, positioning herself between Lunav and the oncoming creatures. Then something shifts. Luna stiffens. She senses an overwhelming surge of mana. It's heavy, unnatural. Lemla watches the structure around them, noting this isn't just a regular ruin. A place like this wouldn't have its own defense system unless it was something else. They try to break the enchantment, but nothing works. The spell work is unfamiliar. Karen suggests brute force might do the trick, but their attacks don't even scratch it. But what's waiting on the other side isn't a hallway. It's a monster huge. She found the info buried deep in the archive of forbidden texts. Cyan frowns, not entirely buying it. The Garum Association's been chasing both the divine and demonic scriptures for decades. She explains they believe the divine armor could push the Garum kingdom to greatness. Her smile fades. She stares at him, then asks why he wants the demonic scripture. Lunav lights up, eyes wide, smile spreading, saying she's in. She'll help him. He blinks, asking what she means by that. What lies beyond stuns everyone, a massive chamber, and in the middle, something ancient and unnatural, an object pulsing with dark energy. But before anyone moves, the artifact flares to life. Lunav shouts for everyone to back off. This thing isn't just a monster. It's something else. And Cyan can't even tell if this is really the demonic scripture they've been chasing or something much worse. The creature doesn't budge, then it swipes hard. She gets knocked out of the air. The monster smashes through the cyclone with a single hit, like swatting a fly. Eyes fixed, fists clenched. The fact that Cyan's beside Lunav, it eats at him. That even Cyan wouldn't survive what just happened, but she doesn't flinch. She looks at the rubble, eyes hard, insisting he's still alive. They've landed in some other dimension entirely. Standing before him now is something else, a creature massive, pure mana, its name etched into the air around it, the Palarok. The last attack hit him head-on. Kid didn't stand a chance, too young, too human. He cuts off all its limbs, then takes the head. The creature doesn't fall silent. He responds immediately, casting Obsession Void Fear. The swirling magic devour the creature whole. It laughs, saying he could keep cutting forever, and it still wouldn't matter. The longer it goes, the more drained he'll get. Lunav notes that if there's some kind of magic barrier keeping the ruin intact, they're stuck. She answers without hesitation that Cyan's not dying that easy. His voice rises, screaming now. And if she was going to fall for anyone, it should have been him, not Cyan. That breaks something in him. He snaps, saying he doesn't care if she mocks his feelings anymore, and if she won't come willingly, then he'll force it. Elsewhere, Seth wakes up. He's not sure where he is. The place looks nothing like where he fell. It's been years. Apparently she saved his life once. She waves it off, saying it's fine. Back in the other realm, San is still locked in combat. Every technique he's ever learned, he's using it. If Karam were conscious, she would have known. But she's still down, burned out from that last fight against the bullies. He dodges just in time. But the energy coming off Seth is wrong, completely wrong. Both freeze, caught off guard. The entity adds that if the swordsman doesn't have a good reason, he'll just kill him outright. Lamir clocks the movement instantly, irritation flashing in his eyes. With a flick of magic, he seizes the man's arm and twists it. Once it's over, the shadow turns, eyes landing on Lunav. He asks where she's planning on going. His gaze narrows on her chest, pointing out faint traces of heart curb lingering in her aura. She turns the question around, asking if he's okay. Lami assures her he's fine, probably chatting with the spirit who owns this whole dungeon. The man's strength is off the charts now. Mana's boosted, physical powers overwhelming. Cyan is struggling, barely able to block the attacks coming at him. The possessed fighter even takes flight, hovering above with zero effort. When he speaks, it's not his voice anymore. He braces himself, but right before the hit lands, he hears her voice. Karam's finally awake. Her, saying she's just playing around with her master and Karam shouldn't be so possessive. She just loaned it to the tribe that worships her. They built the shrine, and after the war she took Lamaran in for safekeeping to keep the divine armor out of the wrong hands. She didn't expect that answer. She asks again, that's all you want? He levels his gaze at her, saying if she gets in the way he'll kill her too. Cheyenne stares at her for a beat, thinking if she's riding shotgun in Seth's body, then he won't die the same dumb way he did in his last life. The ground beneath them cracks open, then swallows them whole. When it spits them back out, they're exactly where they'd once been, trapped under all that rubble. She'd been terrified he wouldn't make it back. He scans the ruins. It's absolute devastation. She tells him only she and Lamela made it out. Everything else a blur of chaos since he vanished. She's not casting a basic spell. She's about to use a 9th star teleportation spell. No horns, no wings, no tail. A perfect match down to the exact way he stands. Leximus and Arin look her way. Leximus tilts his head, asking if she's good. Before Sir pushes it further, Arin steps in, saying she needs a word. It's not the best timing, not even close. Back in the wild, the teleportation worked. They made it. Cyan pulled it off, something Saya honestly wasn't sure he could do. It's Nordeli, the city of the outsiders. Before anyone can speak, a group of men emerges from the shadows, blocking their path. Barney gestures toward one of the men nearby, asking if he recognizes him. He squints, puzzled, then gives a slow shake of his head. He brushes it off, claiming it was just kids messing around. But underneath, he knows the truth. Instead of walking through doors like a normal person, he punches through the walls around them. Sabalim introduces herself plainly, the one who treads the desert, the one who unleashed storms. When the goddess finally vanishes, Seth looks like he's seen a ghost. He asks if they heard her too. She wishes Arin a good time with Cyan. Inside the room, Arin and Nana are still holding hands. Noticing, the shifter lifts a hand to Arin's forehead, checking if she's running a fever. She spots a tail sprouting behind Nana and immediately calls it out. Cutting back to the tin candle, the academy feels unfamiliar, like it's hiding something ancient or dangerous. She stares, stunned as Nana morphs back and forth into Can. Her mind starts to spiral. Nana helped her figure something out, but it needs to stay between them. She makes her swear to keep it secret. Once she's wiped her face clean, she tells Nana never to breathe a word of this toy. He couldn't care less. He tells her to move, then casts a spell to shove her out of his way. She quickly tells Nana to run. Whoever this guy is, their way outmatched. Back at the scene, the dean's relentless, casting one spell after another, keeping her on the run. Still, she's not backing down. He watches her, stunned, and asks if some divine being is riding her body. How can she tell? She says she can smell it. She can tell who's kind just by the way they carry their scent. He warps next to her and drives a fist into her face full force. She's been close to Cyan. Maybe she'll know what to do. As if right on cue, Syrah slips in quietly through the back door, having followed the noise. Syrah approaches the window, examining the spell. Leximus asks if there's a way to break it. The dean finally sees her for what she is, a child. Suddenly, the barrier shatters. She reminds him of his daughter. He turns away, rain pounding harder outside. He says she's clearly hurt and needs healing. Meanwhile, somewhere else entirely, the crowd roars. Seth is officially crowned, now worshipped as the vessel of the goddess Sabalom. Seth's expression twists into frustration. He yanks at the outfit, ripping it apart, yelling for them to stop with this ridiculous charade. And she adds, they're not the only ones being watched. Lunav bursts into the room, surprised to see Can already there. Another day of rest, and she'll be fine. The internal wounds are already healed. In the dean's office, he leans forward, questioning Syrah on how Cyan managed to sneak a Dronic human into the academy. Sure, she might carry that darkness inside her, but she was trying to protect someone. He tried to stop it, did what he could, but fate doesn't care. As he walks away, he rests a hand on her shoulder. But just before stepping out, he turns back to ask one last question. What does Nana like most at night? His expression softens with a quiet smile. He doesn't know why he thought of Diana, only that he misses her deeply tonight. He excuses himself, saying he needs to return to the academy. She can come by later with Seth. He's still learning about Cyan too. He steps closer. She tells him she's with everything he had. Meanwhile, Brian hasn't stopped training since the dean's attack. He's haunted by what Anesthetica told him. Brian blocks a sword strike with his combat counter, slashing through with a counterattack. The figure's identity is revealed. He recognizes the intruder, Kellen, a former subordinate of Ashel, but his appearance has changed drastically. She has given a sly look, wondering if he's fine with Lunav being upset. Brian has looked completely stunned, barely believing how effortlessly the mage has handled it. Cyan has approached the fallen Kellen, breathing hard, asking whether he's still conscious. Using what little strength has remained, the man has warned him to stay cautious. The situation has begun spiraling faster than he's ever calculated. Kellen's form has faded, leaving behind only his warning to stay careful. He's realized he should have killed Boris when he had the chance. As long as that traitor remains alive, this nightmare will keep repeating. So San has clarified they're leaving the academy. Their destination, the Vortduchy Temple of Luminal. With a puzzled tone, she has asked if he hasn't come with Prince Luinal. Her laughter has echoed as she confirmed it. The holy sword rests on the hill where the scenery of the Guardian can be seen. The older man has immediately identified it. The realization has hit. He's completely busted. The dean's anger has exploded. He shouted that San's behavior has been insane, and that he should leave if this is how he intends to act. Cyan has explained, the seal of reversal belongs to someone behind the banquet of blood. Cyan has been taken aback, asking why he's only hearing this now. The dean has handed the stone back, telling him to stop carrying everything alone, and that he needs to pay attention. The older man's voice has gone firm. He must play his part, and the dean will play his. His past life has held nothing good. Stepping out of the room, those words have lingered. Karam has appeared, pointing out that the dean hasn't earned that title for no reason. Cyan has acknowledged the request, assuring her Boris will suffer hell long before reaching it. He's taken hold of the blade and called its name. Ares has felt uneasy about how crookedly it's embedded in the ground, but has assumed it's probably fine. Ares had taken form within the space, clearly not an ordinary presence. She must have originated from this blade. She explained that the wielder of the demonic sword had stolen her power and demanded that Ashel retrieve it as soon as possible. She had reached a point where she no longer relied on him. While he reflected, Brian entered the room, his first words apologetic. Rising from the chair, he said there was a destination he needed to reach. She called out, saying she'd packed him food, but he had already disappeared from view. Such bold goals wasted in a place like this. He reached down to retrieve an artifact and activated it with a spell designed to summon the dead. The elder pressed further. What purpose had brought her here? Karen explained that Cyan Vert had been hunting the scriptures and Lunav had joined in to help. Before any of them had a chance to react, Cyan emerged and instantly took down the four-armed one. Only the bunny remained standing. Cyan stepped toward her, asking for the one he was looking for. Carmilla and Seth noticed and asked what had happened, but she brushed it off, claiming it was nothing. Lunav urged them to speed up, pushing to reach the academy faster. Worry tightened in her chest. The bunny hybrid ended her life in a desperate final move, igniting herself in the explosion. The half-humans caught in the blaze hadn't died, they'd vanished. She half-joked that maybe they'd been reduced to ash, but even she knew that's impossible. This land, once a quiet beast village, had lost its peace long ago, shattered during the chaos of the god-demon war when the demon-dragon Leviathan invaded. Residual power turned Exilium into an abandoned wasteland. The aroma of that mana mutated those left behind, birthing beast hybrids like the ones now in front of him. Karam casually suggested wiping them all out, but she decided it wasn't worth the effort. If not for Boris's enchanted bow, they wouldn't have survived the earlier battle. The panther lifted the box of mana stones and handed it over. It wasn't a huge stash, but enough. He grinned through it, surprised they were still alive. The panther grabbed him and barreled through the wall, dragging him outside. At Luan Academy, inside the royal dormitory, Leximus and Arin lounged together. He noticed her mood shift and asked what had been bothering her. He was never good at sharing how he felt, not with words, but this time it was different. Arin decided to return to the palace to gather intelligence. Before leaving, Lamaharam approached Lunav, warning the search wouldn't be simple. She refused to let it happen, vowing to find him before it was too late. Emily praised his efforts, telling him he'd done well, but then hesitated, wondering aloud whether Cyan even knew they were here, and whether he truly planned to join them later. Still, she couldn't shake a creeping sense of dread. Nana's mood hadn't helped. She'd been visibly gloomy, staring out the window for what felt like hours. He approached Nana, asking what had gotten her so down. She responded, blaming herself, saying her papa must have run off because she caused trouble. As she wrapped her arms around him, she muttered that Cyan was stupid and insisted that Brian scold him later. They were told not to let him counter. Karam observed their movements and pointed out the obvious. Just before he reached the four-armed one, the bunny launched a flaming arrow at him, warning him to stay sharp. He then decapitated the four-armed hybrid and dashed toward the bunny, splitting her cleanly in half. The dragon stirred, and as the sky darkened, Cyan realized the unthinkable. Boris had actually brought Leviathan back, reanimated as a puppet. He decided he wouldn't allow it. The Leviathan awakened in full, and atop its massive form, Boris took control. Even paused, stunned by the sheer brutality. Karam leaned in to explain that it hadn't merely consumed the hybrid. Across the wider city, other beast hybrids noticed the dragon's return. Its gaze turned to them, charging energy in its mouth. The bunny begged him to stop and fired off a desperate explosion at the dragon in a last-ditch effort to halt the attack. The dragon has unleashed another wave of fire surrounding Cyan and the bunny hybrid in an inferno. The guy tried to intercept him by activating flashing rain, sending a volley of rapid strikes, but Cyan redirected each attack without effort. Boris only laughed, brushing off the concern for others and claiming that Cyan is destined to become the next offering in the ritual. He then leapt straight to the dragon's head, arriving before Boris could even notice. Meanwhile, Lam and Lunav continued their search for him until Lamaram suddenly picked up on his energy, declaring that he had located him. It was barely more dangerous than an overgrown lizard compared to Cyan's strength. At that moment, Lamela stormed in with a group from the Garam Association. Lamela leaned in quietly, confessing she had a bad feeling about all this and would try to buy some time. Lunav smiled faintly and asked her to deliver a message to Princess Arin. Others hurled false claims, demanding he leave. Karam muttered again that killing them would be simpler, but Cyan dismissed the idea, saying it was fine. Then Ashel stepped into the room, asking if Lul had sent for him and what he wanted. The Emperor frowned, puzzled how Ashel could know, but the mage dodged the question and told him to prepare for departure. Had the plan worked, he could have healed himself. Nearby, Earth Decree, severely damaged, spoke to him, telling him it was all right. In the proximity of Luen, the royal carriage has been rolling steadily toward the academy. The Elder, baffled, has questioned what connection might have to anything relevant. The Elder, disturbed, has asked for clarification on the bounty. This, he said, is simply divine will, an unavoidable path laid out by the God of Light. She's denied any involvement. The Elder, enraged, has accused her of shielding Cyan and unleashed a gravitational spell to pin her down. He's reminded her of her future within the Garam Association, warning her not to be ruled by sentiment. The Elder has vowed to erase the memories he finds useless, hoping to resurrect the version of her he once preferred. Someone has purged every trace. Her mood has soured at the knowledge that this has been the residence of the one who insulted her, and she's promised quiet retribution. She, skeptical, has muttered her distrust in humans and dismissed the delay as his problem to deal with. Fury has crept into Luel's voice. He insists that others, Violet, Favian, Norovian, and Arin, are all clawing for the throne and would stop at nothing to secure it. He's turned away, reminding the young man of his father's efforts to maintain peace and urging him not to unravel it. She's admitted she had only come to inquire about Cyan. The prince has rudely dismissed her, but the dean has promptly ordered him to leave, reminding him that she had requested this audience first. The elder has confirmed it with a grim nod. Arin has burst into tears, unable to reconcile the accusations with what she's known of Cyan, insisting he could never commit such disgraceful acts. The youngest heir of House Hers has become the subject of gossip, whispers of crimes, and speculation on whether he might show up here next. Cyan has let out a wry smirk and said that he is. Now Ashel will come chasing him, craving the Empire's most expensive bounty just in time to try and play the hero. Instead of panicking, Alice tells Cecilia that they should focus on their training, to which Cecilia is surprised by Alice's calm response. Marion, who's nearby, praises Alice's determination and tells her to continue training. Alice agrees and goes back to her practice. Suddenly, something strange happens and the surroundings shift into another realm. The grandfather is shocked. After that, Lem calls him an inferior being and tells him to choke on the truth he was so desperate to uncover. Also, Brian insists has been framed and Nana echoes his concern. Tension rises as Brian prepares his sword, declaring he made an oath to protect Cyan and Nana with his life. Brian tears up, and Nana runs to Cyan, calling him Papa. After that, Cyan tells them to keep quiet because he had been really worried. Cyan says the only option now is to hide inside his other dimension because the entire empire is turning into his enemy. A subordinate rushes in, apologizing for returning without the others and explains that everyone else was defeated by Lunav herself. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a quiet night near a tall building. Cyan stands boldly under the moonlight, facing a group of soldiers who came to capture him. The academy feels strangely quiet now, almost as if something important is missing. The spot where Cyan once sat seems to echo with emptiness, and even the surroundings feel like they're grieving his absence. Without wasting a second, Seth agrees and decides not to overthink and lifts Lunav in his arms, smashes through a wall, and follows Lem's lead. In fact, Lamela tells her that Lunav wanted to pass on this message before she was taken away by Mr. Arin feels crushed because she realizes she truly didn't know much about Cyan at all. The helplessness makes her feel even worse, and despite being a princess, Arin feels completely useless. Redbeck, the academy's top student known for his exceptional stamina and mana ranks, steps forward and believes he can finally bring down and unleashes his most powerful attack, Dragon Spear, in a dramatic display of fire and strength. The onlookers are stunned, unable to believe how quickly their strongest fighter was taken down. Meanwhile, the battlefield turns chaotic. Reinforcements are being sent to Square B, and soldiers are running in all directions. Cyan, keeping his guard up, asks what business Ryans has in the Yoshif Empire and what he wants from him. After hearing this, San is left completely dumbfounded by the unexpected proposal. Despite the undeniable offer, Cyan decides to turn it down, saying there's no way a 9-star sage can't bring a fruition. Then he commands that the Knights of Light be sent if reinforcements fall short. Lunal then locks eyes with Arin and directly asks if they're there to ruin his plan. This only enrages Lunal further when he realizes the king gave him no orders. There, his granddaughter reveals that the royal decree was fake all along, astonishing him. Seth cheerfully walks toward them, but Lunav's bag suddenly yells that it's not Cheyenne. Lunav quickly realizes it's her grandfather's aura. From the bag, a shadow emerges, remarking that Ryan sure is fast and assuming that Cyan must be there too. The ground starts shaking, and they think it's an earthquake until they see Seth and Lunav advancing. He explains that the rumors say this battle won't end in Bruno, and they'll be charging into the palace next. He hurries them to come at him. The fighters feel insulted, but right then Ryans flies in. He now understands how evil his opponent is, seeing him not care about his subordinates. Regans then uses the bead's soul harvester. Suddenly, Lunav steps into the fight, ordering her grandfather to stop. Cyan wishes his friends good luck and leaves to face his real enemy. However, Ryans refuses to let him off so easily and sends his soul harvester after him. Ryan screams in pain and drops his beads. The soul harvest on Cyan's tail disappears. Cyan leaps towards them. The knights see his demonic sword and run towards him. The knight then summons the perfect thunder, but Cyan dodges it. He leaps towards his opponent, grabs him by his face, and smashes him into the ground. He takes the blow and runs through to face his opponent. However, Cyan can feel Karam's pain and realizes that he shouldn't have directly taken on the Holy Sword's attack. She offers to make a bet on who will break first, her or Duran Dark's hair. However, Ashel still feels confident that the power of the God of Light cannot be surpassed. Ashel orders his brother to hand it over, but Ken refuses to just give it away. A blinding light takes over. Cyan dodges the attack and Durandark reveals to her hair the half power of the Holy Sword and orders him to bring the other half back to her. Cyan refuses to repeat his past mistakes. He knows he needs to look for attack opportunities while dodging his opponent's attacks. Meanwhile, the knights see the fight from the distance and realize that they can't interfere at this power level. He struggles to keep Boris's knights back. As the two continue to fight, Ashel asks his brother if he still wants to keep fighting, reminding him that he can't win. On the other hand, Lunav continues to torment her grandfather and thinks that the fighting is enough now. Seth acknowledges that it was the woman's help too. Lunav thanks the woman for her help. Seeing that the weapon is used only in wars, she realizes that they're trying to get Cyan. Realizing that Ashel and Luel could be related to the Banquet of Blood, Ashel breaks Dean Kundal's magic spell, leaving him shocked. Ashel thinks that the princess is seduced by his sibling and thinks it's his responsibility to save her. However, Ashel does not intend to go against the will of God. He releases his attack. But then Aaron comes forward to save her friend. She knows she can't go back now, otherwise she'll lose Cyan. As they rush through the battlefield, the monsters leap in on them. But suddenly Seth jumps off and pushes the monsters back while the rest run for Cyan. Princess Aaron and Cyan stand side by side, struggling to hold their ground. Ashel is surprised to see the demonic scripture arrive. Lem thinks Cyan knew he and Lunav would come. He uses the old god's promise to help Cyan recharge his mana, and the sudden burst of energy leaves Ashel shocked. The sword now realizes that this was always Cyan's plan. When planning this whole thing, Cyan wondered if Lunav would appear if he fought. Lem realizes that the prophecy has come true as he watches the pawns fight each other. Dean Kundal walks in thinking that the monster's power source must have disappeared and feels glad to see his students okay. On the other hand, Ashel is surprised to see himself bleeding. Lundal warns him that his opponent can even devour light now, and he might die for underestimating his opponent. He uses his Dance of Blood second form Harvester. Ashel uses his Halabringer. Cyan uses his Fog Sword and cuts through the attack. He uses his Fog Sword Halo and strikes Ashel from the back. As Ashel withers in pain on the ground, Cyan enjoys his enemy's misery. Ashel believed that evil things should be cleansed from the roots. Cyan uses his demonic sword Union, the God Eater, and lands his final blow. Ashel wonders why his brother had always hated him. Cyan tells his brother that he knows he must be wishing that he had killed his brother when he noticed the potential. Cyan walks away thinking that it's over, but then the Holy Sword speaks up. Nana calmly sits down, and the woman tells them again that the black fog has swallowed the light. Cyan tells Karam to return to the sword. He feels something strange about the seal. This was the last memory of Cyan that she had. The Giants of Light disappeared fast and Prince Lunal and Ashel were also missing. Vili stands by the king's side, feeling sorry for being late. He feels like he neglected his children while only focusing on the front lines. Olin tries to console him, but Villiard thinks of himself as the worst father ever. As a result, Bruno ends up in ruins and his family's bloodline is at risk. It turns out that she killed Luel first. At the battlefield, Luel was heavily injured. Luel orders her to take him to the palace to get treatment, but Violet refuses to do that. Ken finds her medicine's color, and the bottle's shape similar to the elixir March Sanctification, but he finds the mana very similar to what he felt in the demonic realm. The people saw the battle clearly. They saw how pathetic Ashel looked with the heavenly wings and how the demon called Cyan took him down. Everyone could agree on that decision thanks to Ver's charity work. Dean Kundal is surprised to see that Aaron chose the magical text instead of the sword or wand. Sokka is confused wondering why Lumandel would intervene directly and Dean has no clue why. Meanwhile, the Nephilim hold can scan hostage for crossing a line that no creation of a god is allowed to cross. He then takes another swing and uses his Void Sphere division. However, his power is useless before the gods. Suddenly, the Nephilim are shocked as Seth starts to transform and Cyan introduces the sand goddess Sabalum. She hurries him to leave because she can't hold on for so long. The Nephilim try to attack, but suddenly Nana jumps in to protect him. She orders everyone to protect the successor, but Cyan knows they can't hold off. After Cyan and his friends escape, Kundal wonders what he's supposed to do with the giants. Violet knows the old mage doesn't change his mind and assures her men that she found a perfect candidate. As Boris shows gratitude, Violet is shocked to see someone behind him, but suddenly the image disappears and she apologizes to her council and starts talking about business. He asks Durandark why he didn't get anything. Durandark gets angry because getting his powers was all she could do. Cyan plans to kill the great god Lumen. However, Karam reminds Cyan that he should be planning something like that after defeating the god in exile. And for that, the powers of an exiled god are not enough to face them all. He tells his cheers excitedly and tells his hair to accept the prophecy with gratitude. Sarah greets her and tells her she assumed Leximus would answer the door. Arin tells her that Leximus is off to another chore and asks why she's here. Arin then adds that the Giants of Light and Bernal called Nephilims are the children of the great god Luminal, and they are also known as Wardens. She suspects that he must be hiding in the powers of the mist. Sierra is shocked seeing the princess nearly find the answers. Meanwhile, at Eastern Fina, the little girl stands under the tree as she learns that the intense light will remain in the world once the black mist lifts. Cyan plays along and uses his void sphere division. The giant spheres destroy everything in the room. After 3 years, it is finally time and Luna feels eager to meet Cyan. She then asks if Eru permitted him to come out. Cyan answers that he just left because Eru's powers keep the seal hidden for a day. Cyan speaks up that he now realizes that he can't stay outside for more than a day. Right then, I gives Cyan the oracle and tells him to go to the eastern lands Farina to find the prophet who awaits him. Now the cover should last for 2 weeks, which still isn't enough to go to Fuina, but it's better than a day. Suddenly they see Cyan standing in front of them asking for the warp gate. The warp gate is an artifact that Ryan's Reaver often used. It will be Cyan's first time in this life to see it. If an energy source with concentrated mana provides energy, then the mana paths made with runes complete the spell. Cyan walks through the gate and asks Karam if he's ever been to Fuina. Karam accepts that Eru gave them a right oracle, and Cyan feels like the cause of the battle is the place in front of him. Karam realizes that it's sorcery because it's the elves' territory. Cyan picks up some rocks and throws them at the wall to check. Karam explains that it's a divine tree where the past begins at the roots and the future concludes in the leaves. Cyan is surprised to see her recognize him. She explains that she's the divine tree's prophet, Hastya, and asks him if he's here by following the oracle. He sees the guards and the enemies all dead and orders his men to tell everyone that it's safe. Mihan assures the saint that he's faithful. The saint leaves him to take care of things outside and assures him everything will be all right. Suddenly someone walks into the cave and the prophet recognizes the intruder. She asks the prophet if she wants to go with her now to avoid more casualties. As he takes a leap to attack her, Iris extends her hand. Cyan recognizes the symbol on her hand. The Nephilim attack Cyan, and while they fight, the saints grabs Hostia to take her away. Meanwhile, Iris walks out with the elf prophet. Suddenly, Iris hears someone scream at the end of the cave. She runs to find Mihan struggling. Mihan can hardly believe someone can do that. Mihan introduces himself and asks for Garnian's name. Seeing him here is surprising enough. Garnian is in no mood for introductions. Pointing at Iris, he demands to know if she's the ringleader and orders her to hand over the prophet. Mihan immediately warns Iris to watch out, but she suddenly pulls a dagger to Hestia's throat. Mihan can only stare in shock. Garnian just crushed solid steel with nothing but raw strength. He declares that he doesn't need reinforcements because he wants to challenge the strongest warrior of the White Elf clan. Mihan can only curse his luck as he's attacked mid-spec. The punch launches him high into the air, cutting the introduction short in the most painful way possible. Then she crashes right into Cyan, who happens to be chasing after her, casually carrying the severed head of a Nephilim. He asks why she's always in such a hurry. Iris is left stunned. She can't understand how the power granted to her by Luminal could be nothing more than a fake. She never gets the chance. Before she can activate anything, Cyan drops her with a clean kick and knocks her out cold. She's in tears, saying she was terrified because of the Titan earlier, but now she's relieved to see him unharmed. Cyan blocks the kick with one arm. Even so, he's forced backward. In fact, he's sent sliding across the ground. Elfu thanks Cyan and welcomes him to the town. He tells Cyan to make himself comfortable here. Cyan immediately turns to Garnian and asks how he can hear Hastya. Garnian then reveals he received a blessing of foresight from Hastya, which makes him superior to Cyan. Cyan clearly isn't buying that. So, Elfi respectfully adds that outsiders almost never show up in Elfland, so Cyan can understand the bluntness. Karam shifts back to human form and pushes the unease. She flops onto his master and casually drops a bomb. Back in the cell, Elfi repeats the claim and asks if Cyan is Black Fog. Garnian tells her it is too late for excuses. She has already killed countless of their kin. However, Garnian still maintains a compostor, but the skeleton beast mere arm is the size of the entire door. Garnian curses as it starts crumbling. One huge boulder is about to fall off a few folks, but Garnian pops out of nowhere and lifts it up with sheer strength. Before he begins, a fog blade slices its head in one sonic strike. Then an attack of 8 fluttering petals completely subdued the Titan, and of course, it's Cyan. Karam then adds that if she went this extreme, even risking her own life, someone must be pulling the strings. Cyan leans in and tells her to speak and name the traitor who gave her that fake giant. She believes she wanted it more than anyone, but failed in the end. That failure broke her, so she left the frozen land and wandered. Cyan calls it all fake, just a setup to sell some holy dream and stretch her life like a tool. But the real concern is the ancient being Cyan knows nothing about. Cyan asks her if she knows anything. Soon after, Elfu arrives too and says he now feels even more indebted and thanks again. Guardians are granted a blessing that allows them to communicate with the prophet even from a distance, known as the blessing of foresight. As Cyan follows him, they end up at a frozen lake tucked in the middle of the mountains. Just as he closes the distance, Cyan shifts back. He leans his body just enough to slip past the strike. Cyan quickly realizes this guy just absorbed that kick. In the very next moment, Guardian's punch crashes down and shatters the ice, but it hits nothing. Then he half-seriously wonders if planning to go around killing gods next. Hastia turns to him and asks if he can hear her now. Cyan instantly concludes that foresight might not be all that impressive after all. He tries to recover, saying she can at least predict snowstorms and heavy rain. She just got this prophecy from the divine tree, but Cyan already turns away and tells her not to just say whatever pops into her head. Cyan double-checks if Aquantis is the goddess of water. Cyan straight up calls her useless, and that immediately pushes her into tears. Karam says she knows the location. As they walk, he glances back and sees the elf town slowly vanish under camouflage magic. Karam makes even menacing faces to scare her away. Meanwhile, Cyan just reaches the door, leaving them behind. While they argue, Calm just stands there like a glitched NPC since she cannot hear Hastia at all. Hastia tenses up while Karam cracks her knuckles, ready to throw hands. In the swirling water, a Redade monster glides below. As it collapses, Karam still wants smoke, so she starts hitting it with sharp words. Cyan asks why she came. This time the serpent admits it has no clue and practically begs Cyan not to beat it again. Hastia speaks up, calling her Lady Moran. The name makes Cyan think he might have just run into someone rare and actually worth the hype. But she studies herself and points at Marianne, telling Cyan the reason she brought him here is to kill her. Marianne doesn't wait and moves in to educate Karam. With a lazy flick of 2 fingers, she drops mountain-like pressure on Cyan's arm. He quickly apologizes, saying his guardian is only here looking for Lady Alice. The moment she hears Alice's name, the pressure lifts off Cyan. He asks why she came and Marianne just shrugs, saying she has no clue. Just before leaving, Cyan glances back, but says nothing. As he goes, Marianne admits she had thought about this moment. Alice admits she used to drag him down, so now she wants to power up before facing him again. As Alice steps into the pure water, she pleads to Lady Aquinas, already bracing herself to take in that power. Mariana admits she killed Karam's former master. Back to Cyan. He wonders why his blade is still quiet after sensing Mariana. She says she saw Cyan's future with her foresight. Cyan instantly asks about tomorrow's weather and she's blank as usual. Clearly jealous of that lazy vibe. But Eru figures this chill attitude is exactly what makes a god a deity. Suddenly, Mariana appears asking if he is leaving. Cyan wonders if the elemental dragon came just to honor him by seeing him off. Cyan asks how she knows his demon blade. She figures he's not on good terms with his blade and tells him to ask for it himself. He asks if the perception trick is gone and if the sky is changing. She smirks and says it means his end is near. Cyan uses mist movement to dodge it and uses a rage fog storm on the giant's arm. But then something clicks in his mind. Among the giants, Cyan almost looks like an ant that could be crushed by Mariana's overwhelming force. Cyan, knowing if he can't surpass them as a human, decides to give up on being human, and that's exactly what Karam wanted this whole time. The 3 giants already positioned tight, we see Karam enjoy her first breath in Cyan's body. She says Guardian earned his path the hard way and foresight only pointed it out. Hastia says she would never pick someone that hopeless. Now she feels like an idiot for doing exactly that and cannot even find him here. Hastia asks why she is here. In the middle of the chaos, Marianne says the giants were sent by the god of light Luminal to punish Thine, who was branded. She taps the authority of the god of black fog with arch adamant and hurls an energy spear. Hostia tone flips and she hushes Marianne, saying she needs a word with the demon blade alone. Karam tells her to stay out of it. She has every reason to want revenge. Then he says he's leaving. She wastes no time and asks to tag along. What she can't wrap her head around is why Lady Aquinas even stepped in. She says she'll land right on target since Cheon's scent keeps getting stronger every step. Mariana is even more confused. Lun adds it's an oddly tempting scent. That settles it for Mariana. Lunav clearly has a point and her guardian suggests listening to Mariana. Its name is Rem. Rem says that's only half true since experience stacks over time. Lunav wonders if a human like her could ever reach that level. She's shocked Cyan slipped past the Nephilims. Eru starts to praise the clean escape, but Cyan nails him with a snowball right to the face. Eru says she likely shut herself off completely and won't wake soon. Plus, she's holding some strange energy. Cyan bluntly says it's an elf and asks her to take care of her. Cyan says she can see the future, so she might help. Eru suddenly dotes on Hastia, calling her cute and saying she's welcome anytime. She reminds him she is a ruling princess and warns him not to waste her time. Then he asks her where it all ends since she holds the empire now. She says someone else is heading there too and asks if he wants to join them. She has been with Cyan for 2 days and still hasn't received a single oracle. An ugly woman snaps back that fate cannot be changed and if he keeps annoying her, she will have him thrown in jail. The woman confirms it and quickly guesses that Hastia is dealing with some kind of problem. Hastia nods in agreement. Then the granny flips another card and says this must be the source of her trouble. Rasmus then brings up another issue. Arin asks what she means. Rasmus explains there has been someone tailing them for the past few days and asks if she should deal with it. As Rasmus reaches for her sword, he quickly steps out and says he will cooperate, so please lower the blade. Gale already expected her to see through him, so he shrugs it off as a misunderstanding. Rasmus shifts her footing and attacks again, this time landing a solid hit to his gut. Arin's expression turns cold with anger as she says she will not forget this. As Gale walks off, Rasmus apologizes, but Arin tells her this was never a fight she could have handled alone. Cyan has moved first and struck, leaving him wounded. Gale does not know if his opponent is an Imperial assassin, but he feels far beyond his level, and every instinct in him screams. But Cyan meets him head-on with Fogblade Flash. The clash is instant and decisive. He removes his mask and demands an answer. Gale is shocked to see him and Cyan coldly says his reply will decide if he dies in pain or not. A straight-up prodigy in both sword play and summoning magic, he was also among the few disciples Yulkin personally trained from a young age. Then Gale drops it. His so-called betrayal was just orders from Duke Vert, Cyan's own father. He asks if she came all the way from Fuina when there's a council assembly today. She asks why he messed with Cyan. Garam replies he wanted to marry his granddaughter, but he refused. She then shows her own power, making it clear Garam has nothing to worry about as long as she stands with him. But this is not early inheritance since she is the type to get whatever sparks her curiosity. The scene shifts to the Empire's secret lab where someone suddenly rushes in with alarming news. Cyan realizes it's mind destruction magic. Surprisingly, Annie starts to sweat heavily with face all pale. Murray steps in the chat and orders the guards to step back as Cyan isn't someone they can mess around with. Actually, Murray fears Lady Lunov's death threat for even touching Cyan, whom she calls her target. His mission was to keep an eye on Arin and report everything directly to Duke Vert. Cyan had asked why Gale cared so much. Gale had replied that it all came down to a promise. Cyan had wondered if that could get the Duke branded a traitor. He could not understand why someone so obsessed with protecting his family would take such a risk. Cyan had grown uneasy and wondered why Arin would ever need something like that. Cyan had asked what she discovered. Gale replied that she found out was not a demon. Cyan had felt guilty, so he asked Gale if he would ever be able to use a sword again. Hastia gets annoyed and asks that if he already knew she was there, why did he not invite her along earlier? Hostia says a group of warriors gathered somewhere ahead and the place holds the clues needs. He fixes her hood properly before entering a guild. Cyan quietly scans the area around him while Hastia shrinks a little since everyone there looks rough as hell. The second that idiot reaches for her, a sonic slash slices through his fingers. Cyan shuts that idea down without even blinking. He asks Rick if any weird phenomena happened around here. Then Cyan brings up the ruins and Rick immediately asks if he means the Roar ruins. Cyan throws Rick's suspicions in trash by overpowering him in a single move, then coldly warns him that if he does not start talking, he is going to lose his head. Rick ignores the question and says Duke Verda has not been cooperating lately. Then he suggests Cyan travel with his guild since he can guide them through the area himself. Rick suddenly gets weirdly embarrassed and mutters what else could it possibly be. The moment he explains they boost stamina, Cyan instantly makes sure Hastia does not hear that disgusting nonsense. He only agreed because they looked easy to manipulate. Then Rick returns with the Rusty Sword Guild and introduces everyone. Hastia notices using mind link magic to speak directly to her. He warns her that the moment he gives the signal, she needs to shut her eyes and ears immediately. Meanwhile, Cyan notices the blood stench growing stronger with every step they take. Then Rick suddenly says they have arrived. Malbec suddenly jumps from behind, trying to end it in one swing, saying it is already too late for him to react. Malbec instantly realizes he picked the wrong target and starts to feel real dread. Then's blade cleanly slashes Rick's cheek. The mage's staff falls and when Rick turns, Altz is already coughing blood after being struck down by Cyan. While Cyan uses the skill of Shadow Persona, the mist seeps inside Rick's eyes and completely controls his mind. If she was powerful enough to kill gods, then the other gods probably kicked her out themselves. Back at the guild, the members are still furious. The bald guy is especially losing it after Cyan chopped off his hand. The bald guy says revenge will feel pointless unless he handles the masked guy himself. Then someone from behind asks him to explain more about the raven-haired man. The bald guy scoffs, wondering who is crazy enough to order him around. Cyan headed toward the Roar Plateau ruins with some kids. Boris immediately realizes the kid must be the white elf prophet. By now, the bald guy is completely drunk on greed and rage. Grinding his teeth, he asks what exactly they need him to do. She even adds that if bringing Senior Cyan back takes this much effort, then it is worth it, making Aaron shoot her a cold glare. Dean Kundal reveals Princess Aaron already informed him about her trip days ago, making everything click for her. They seem to be getting along just fine. It is Sriya. She reminds them that this journey is her responsibility, and she hopes nobody causes trouble. A serious voice suddenly questions why they even came here. It is Rick eyeing the girls and warning them to turn back while he is still being polite. She nearly twists his neck on the spot, making Rick surrender faster than expected. Cut to a monstrous vulture chasing Cyan while he piggybacks Hostia. Chen mocks the ugly beasts while Hastya panics and tells him to stop fooling around. Next, he slices through the vultures with his fog blade before hopping onto the back of another monstrous vulture. He yanks his dagger out of a vulture skull and asks Hastya if she is fine. When Cyan asks what that even means, she says they need to revisit the path they came from earlier. Turns out the can was right about it being a hidden corridor after all, and now a brand new hallway opens before them, overflowing with dense mana everywhere. Yet clueless little Hostja remains completely unaware of it. Anyway, cut to the girls wandering across the same plateau, already doubting if they are even heading the right way anymore. Aaron wonders if somebody has already entered before them. Rashmus guesses it was the Imperial Army, but Aaron quickly points out they still have not arrived yet. Then she urges everyone to hurry because they are already close to finding him. Sarah suddenly announces she will handle that route herself. Rick points at the collapsed gate ahead and says, "Getting through will not be easy." Lunav immediately senses something off. She walks toward a sealed wall and says Cyan's sense suddenly ends there, meaning another hidden route exists behind it. She keeps going without hesitation, activating a bound technique and rushing at the monster at insane speed. Instantly, the group prepares for battle. Outside the main entrance, Commander Boris's soldiers finish preparing to move. Even the mercenaries finally realize Boris is way more terrifying than he first appeared. The attacker is none other than Sira. Niels begs for mercy. She coldly stares down at him with completely merciless eyes. She swears she has already seen the same creepy statue multiple times now. Cyan starts suspecting some hidden mechanism is involved. She guesses the coward probably ran away, while everyone else fought for their lives since he was useless anyway. He admits it is not fully certain, but says it can still sense a familiar energy deeper ahead. He smugly tells them not to forget that little detail either. Lunav proudly introduces the creature as a demon named Rem. Cyan calmly says Aaron's party probably entered the temple already. Then Hastya notices strange writing carved beneath the statue. Hia nervously wonders if this figure could actually be the goddess of death herself. Hastya quietly says the place feels disturbingly similar to a tomb. Water covers the ground while Cyan notes that this dimension likely belongs to the goddess of death herself. A mysterious figure slowly approaches them and coldly asks who dared enter this place. Cyan realizes his idiot god is notorious even among gods and bluntly asks how to kill a god. The goddess suddenly leans in and starts sniffing him. Even Cyan looks disturbed and asks what exactly she thinks she is doing. Killing the god of light would not simply remove one deity. It could destroy the entire era itself. But he already carries the authority of that foolish god he follows. Now, Callie smirks and says that simply means he only needs her acceptance next. Seeing the guy barely able to speak, Boris coldly asks why he led the advance squad on his own. The next second, Neil's face suddenly swells up absurdly before exploding apart in a brutal mess. Sarah suddenly plunges the whole area into darkness and the mercenaries freak out when they can't see anything. The light reveals Sir mid-attack, going at another mercenary. A bald mercenary charges at her with his gauntlet hammer skill, but she effortlessly blocks it with a counter kick. Next, she leaps at Boris, ready to settle an old score. Boris just laughs, convinced that no matter how much she's grown, she's still just a human. Meanwhile, we switch to Rem, who's now transformed into a giant beast carrying the girls through the ruins. Rem explains that the skeleton was a loyal servant of the god worshipped in this place, and used mana to keep the ruins intact over the years. Rem chimes in saying necromancy isn't a bad idea after all, but Aaron quickly warns Lunav about the dangers of messing with it. Lunav opens her spell book and starts chanting. Magic circles light up around her as she commands the darkness to rise. Aaron warns Lunav that she's pushing too hard. Stubbornly, Lunav counters that the knowledge in these ruins could really help Senior Tyne, so the risks are totally worth it. Dark energy explodes around the throne as the entire chamber shakes. Lunov suddenly collapses, making Aaron rush over in a panic. He goes on about how he feels he didn't deserve it since his life was a failure and he couldn't protect what mattered most to him. Lunov nervously mentions that her demon Rem sent his greetings. The skeleton immediately recognizes the name. She reminds him he clearly wants something from her. He throws out the question of whether she really doesn't care that he's already got another god lining up. Eventually, Cyan decides to pledge his loyalty to her, and Kay's grinning like she just hit the jackpot, telling him he made the right call. Callie calmly asks if their words even make sense. Cyan questions if she really expects him to feel guilty now. Kay is left stunned as he nonchalantly says it's way easier to just destroy everything. Meanwhile, Hastia is nervously sniffing around, worried because she never explained this place to Cyan and is clueless about what to do. He asks Kay why she keeps showing him those dead guys again and again. Before he can think further, something shoots toward him at breakneck speed. He barely ducks in time as 3 of them slam into the wall next to him. Boris is frustrated because he's used almost all his cards, but he can't figure out how this girl is still beating him even when he's at full power. The ruins are like a giant vortex of darkness, making him easy prey. As dark energy swirls around him, Sarah decides to finish this for good, so Boris won't bother Cyan anymore. She drives her knee right into his stomach and sends him crashing onto a rooftop. Boris finally realizes that surviving is more important than his pride. He activates Angel Descends and a blinding light bursts from his body. Feeling a bit guilty for letting Boris escape, she notices a huge hole in the cave where he got away. Aaron asks how the goddess of death once adored by so many ended up in ruins. If they become followers of the goddess of death, he'll hook them up with some rewards. Lunov is ready, but the other girls are a bit freaked out. Varian calmly mentions that might be true in the Age of Light, and he asks if that's a reason to hesitate. Aaron claims she'll find her own way without taking the deal. Varian then asks Lunov for her name. As she focuses on that person's face, she realizes it's Smiles, feeling certain her guess was right all along and rushes toward him to give him a hug, saying how much she missed him. Finally, they see each other inside Kay's domain. Lunov wonders if this is a dream or just her imagination. He points out that Lunov looks pretty happy while snoozing. Aaron wonders what she could be dreaming about, while Varian assumes she's content after becoming a follower. She can't wrap her head around how anyone would want to worship someone like that. They were always dying from storms, hunger, or bad hunts. Death was basically part of life. Then Varian hits her with a simple question. If she believed in the era of light so much, why did she even look for the Temple of Death in the first place? He tells the girls it's time for them to bounce because he has some urgent stuff to take care of. As soon as he lands, Varian greets him casually like they're old buddies, asking if it's been a while. Cyan asks how she even found this place. Lunov rolls her eyes saying it's a silly question, especially after disappearing for so long. Lunov realizes Hastia's mind-linking with her, but teases her for being a pipsqueak who hung on to Cyan the whole time. Then Lunov asks Cyan what the luminal curse even is. He explains it's the punishment for going against the holy sword, which leads the Titans of Light and the Nephilim to chase him forever. Key explains that he already got it the moment he passed the test. Without wasting any time, he uses the power on Hastia, even though she's freaking out. Then he asks when Hastia will wake up, and Kay tells him that she's just asleep, but he quickly realizes his power has taken a hit. Lunov wonders how Key knows all this, and she smugly reminds her that she's an all-knowing goddess who can even see the tiny, precious Rami Haram inside her. Callie flat out refuses, saying she doesn't want to lose her hard-won followers and will deal with Boris herself. She says he told her to read the text under the statue, which means the authority worked like a charm. Back in the dimension, Kay quietly connects to Varian and asks if he still can't find peace after death. Varian flatly refuses, saying they'll always stand against people like Boris because that's what his goddess wants and it's the path to oblivion. Varian accepts that without hesitation, saying Boris won't take anything from them again. The explosion slams Boris into the ground hard enough to leave a massive crater. Aaron calmly accepts it, saying the responsibility falls on her as royalty, and she is ready for any punishment. Rem says some rest will fix it, and asks if she has any plan to gather followers since spreading a forgotten foreign god's faith sounds impossible. Lunov casually points out that old systems always develop cracks eventually, and she simply plans to pry those cracks wide open. The scene cuts back to Rashma's training with her sword when Gale suddenly shows up and greets her. Rashma tells him to leave if he only came to crack bad jokes because she is busy. But the moment she charges mana for a powerful sword skill, Gale simply watches calmly. Instead, Gale casually kicks her flat onto the ground. He mocks her for panicking while Rashmus angrily asks what the point of all this is. What she needs now is a proper teacher. Rashmus asks what he means and the scene flashes back. Gale finally gives up and agrees, though he warns him not to expect miracles. When he asks if Cyan and Arin were involved, Cyan praises his detective skills instead of denying it. Gale says it is only an escort mission this time since he has to accompany her to meet her new fiancé. Punishment was one thing, but forcing her into an engagement with absolute human trash is crossing the line. The arrogant drunk young master Barrett smirks with that punchable rich boy face of his and says he has been waiting a very long time for this reunion. Arin and Lunav were too stubborn, so she followed them while they searched for him and even heard Lunav met him personally. Cyan is left stunned while Kay smugly adds that this way they can meet more often. Kali instantly realizes that she is far older than Eru, and also someone absolutely necessary if they want to kill Rundle. She tells him to prepare himself to end this era, but before that, he better start gathering followers for the goddess of darkness. Cyan asks what she means and if she knows him. Arin asks why he is suddenly so friendly, and if it is because of Violet's orders. He explains that Ravelon borders the Spana Kingdom and House Robbie Hain controls the area with a giant wall that keeps demi-humans out of the Empire. House Ramil also helped them rise by supporting them through trade, and the two houses became closely connected. Since she has not given up either, she should quietly wait for her chance, which annoys them. On the way, Gale notices a lone swordsman training by himself. He thinks the guy is definitely working hard, but it is sad the poor fellow has absolutely zero talent. It is Cyan. He already knows the guy is Shirts, but still wonders what the leader sees in him. If Shirts survives the fight, he gets to live. Shirts asks what this suddenly means as he realizes Cyan is strong enough to use sword aura with just a stick. Cyan reads his stance and asks what exactly he plans to do next. Shirts lunges first. Cyan catches the blade with 2 fingers and praises him for at least rolling well enough to fake skill. A servant reports that Princess Arin has arrived at Real. The woman listening is the second Princess Violet. Behind him stands the 4th Prince Nerobian. He says they know Barrett better than anyone, and he will deal with her himself. Violet says the truth is even worse. She recalls Boris speaking about the goddess of darkness Ki resurrecting him. Back in the present, Nerobian says they should kill Arin first, but Fabian calls him an idiot since drawing attention now would be suicide. Cyan tells Shirts will become strong enough to kill the real trash of the world quietly. Shirts says that is exactly the problem. His father values the family more than anything while he himself is just the traitor son of some nameless woman. So as far as he cares, the whole house can burn. Now Cyan finally understands why Sarah sent him here. Cyan tells him to relax. He is only changing faces for a bit. Cyan slowly replaces his old look. When they try to stop them, Shirts casually says he got sick and introduces Cyan as his new guard knight, Gunter. The guard instantly freezes and starts sweating before hurriedly announcing Shirts' arrival and ordering the gates open. The moment he properly sees the couple, disgust crawls up his throat. Cyan already heard House Robbie had 8 siblings and now he finds 5 more walking piles of trash. The moment he turns around, both Shirts and Cyan greet him carefully. This man is Shirts' father, Count Robbie. Shirts panics and calls out to his father, but the Count only seems impressed by the quick reflexes. Count Robbie casually replies that they always hold one during visits like this. The second they leave the room, Shirts speeds up his pace, like he wants to escape the entire estate. Shirts instantly kills that idea as he plans to skip training and run away instead. Instead of mocking him, Cyan gently hugs him and quietly says things will be different this time. Later, the floor is covered with potion bottles for Shirts to drink. Cyan casually says they are all good for the body and tells him to chug them down. Arin politely asks if he has been doing well. He flatly says no. According to him, everything went to hell because of her and her former fiancé. Barrett instantly snaps. He smashes a pillar hard enough to crack it and roars at her to never say that traitor's name in front of him again. Knowing that traitor died on his own terms still drives him mad. Still, he cannot help grinning at what comes next. Surely his dear fiancée, Princess Arin, feels the same excitement too. Gale looks impressed since she somehow keeps getting faster despite swinging around a giant claymore. Before he can react, she slips behind him. Gale immediately understands she created that opening on purpose. Gale looks disappointed, but Rasmus bitterly admits she has thrown everything she has at him and still cannot leave even a scratch. Gale finally understands why Arin refused to bring Rasmus with her. Rasmus looks miserable knowing her princess is about to get married off to trash like Barrett. Gale's Rasmus her problem is obvious. She fights like someone still too inexperienced and too soft. Rasmus finally smiles at that and the two head back toward the Empire together. The referee starts the match. Alance rolls his sword around and mocks Shirts for always being a human sandbag. Shirts simply turns around since he already decided the fight is over. Then a brutal strike slams into Alance, blocking the attack and shattering it into pieces. One clean jab lands right on Alonce's face. Every brother is stunned, even the count sits frozen. Even Aaron stands speechless with the other brothers. Rosalind instantly yells for the match to stop before Shirts kills him. He says their youngest brother looks frustrated and reminds Rosalind that her reputation as the eldest daughter is on the line. Shirts gives all the credit to the dragon blood and says he is taking a break. Right then, Rosalind storms into the room. Shirts is about to ask why she came when she suddenly slaps him across the face. He coldly tells her she should stop before something ends up broken. Rosalind instantly starts sweating as fear creeps into her face. She proudly says Dao is a quasi-sword saint and his guard has zero chance against him. Dao proudly asks if he can feel the passionate gazes of the audience. That, he says, is the difference between them. At the same time, Sarah's Robbie loudly cheers for her knight's victory. She arrogantly talks about the overwhelming gap between nobles and lowborn trash, making Shirts think she sounds as stupid as ever. But his sword suddenly stops because Cheyenne catches the blade with his teeth. The sword shatters into pieces inside his mouth. The audience cannot believe what they just witnessed. Moments ago they praised Deka like a hero. In darkness, his movements would be nearly invisible. That man is definitely an assassin. Shirts has no clue what that means, but agrees immediately anyway. Then Cyan says he will begin the modification process. Now he has been using Cyan's techniques. After watching his swordsmanship, the crowd cannot hide their shock anymore. Cyan realizes that if memories can be erased, they should also be manipulated. Right now, Shirts lacks combat experience, so why not temporarily shove battle skills straight into his memories? Shirts kept winning afterward. Even his father begins enjoying the matches, though Oliver points out his next opponent will not be easy. The night before, Barrett visited Harry to ask for the match. Harry was lounging around with wine and girls while casually asking if Barrett thought he was unreliable. Harry immediately apologizes while shaking. Barrett likes the reaction and lightly punches him before telling him to keep drinking himself unconscious, since he will handle the spar instead. Even Aaron immediately recognizes Shirts' stance as Cyan's swordsmanship, making her wonder if Cyan himself is somewhere nearby. Shirts counters with a savage dagger strike, but the moment his blade hits Barrett's armor, the mana completely disperses. That completely stuns Barrett. Shirts slowly stands while clutching his wound, and says this actually makes him happy, because it means people are finally acknowledging him. Even while bleeding, he points his dagger forward and says he is genuinely delighted right now. She refuses and says the people need protection first. The match gets suspended on the spot, while the officials tell everyone to return home, because the mummy attack has begun. So he decides to check out the mummies himself just to kill some boredom. He starts wondering if the cause is somehow connected to Etchel's disappearance. Meanwhile below, Count Robbie notices Cyan and asks Frederick what he discovered. Robbie quietly orders Frederick to keep watching. After all, Shirts suddenly became stronger overnight, and his swordsmanship changed completely. Oliver walks over and checks if he's okay. Shirts is surprised by his brother's concern and quickly replies that the treatment was quick and the injuries are minor. Cyan slides down a wall and hits the ground where Barrett comes over clearly impressed by his skills. As he opens the door, he jokes that no one would care if someone disappeared in there. He proudly states that every girl there was picked specifically by him. As soon as Cyan steps in, Barrett snaps his fingers and tells the girls to treat the guest with all sincerity. Confused, he hears Cyan casually ask him what might hurt more. As Cyan walks toward him, he says that killing him would be too easy since it would just leave him with a grudge. He'll take him out bit by bit. Barrett quickly activates his armor, shocked to see still alive. He calls for his dagger and with a smirk asks Barrett if all his wealth is enough to bribe a god. With a creepy grin, he promises to slowly tear him apart from the inside while Barrett sobs like a wreck. Then, he glances over at the girls and decides they should just forget this whole place and live normal lives. Shirts happily shares that Oliver bought him the new clothes. His dad nods, saying Oliver likely wanted to encourage his recent growth. From what he found out, his guard supposedly hails from Limestar. Even worse, Gunther has a reputation as a complete madman whose cruelty scared everyone around him. Just then, the door swings open and Princess Arin walks in asking if she's interrupting something. Arin gently reassures him it's all good and then compliments him on his sword fighting during the sparring matches, making Shirts blush even more. Later, Barrett wakes up in a bed drenched in sweat as memories of a horrifying nightmare flash through his mind. While Cyan eats an apple, he wonders if Arin still believes her god would do something even after going through a forced engagement. She trains herself for danger anyway, and Rasmus simply respects her wish to stay close with normal people, which she's doing right now. Barrett says he only sprained his ankle a little, then smugly adds that he's glad Arin cares so much about her fiancé. Barrett nearly loses it when Shirts draws everyone's attention to his injuries. He mocks Barrett, saying he must have gone too hard during their spar and apologizes for beating him up too badly. The scene shifts to the arena as Barrett says no one will interrupt them this late. Rasmus feels the same and plans to step in and erase Barrett if Shirts gets seriously hurt. Cyan just smirks and asks since when people started fighting with magic alone. Right then, Shirts casually tosses his dagger onto the ground. Shirts admits fighting barehanded was honestly a gamble, but somehow it worked perfectly. Barrett can't even process what just happened. Then Shirts' shadow looms over him as he asks how it feels to be weak. So Aaron orders everyone to end the fight immediately. Cyan steps forward and asks if this is better for her since she would not have to suffer the engagement anymore. Oliver calls the whole thing disgraceful, asking what kind of pathetic fight between brothers they are putting on in front of Princess Aaron. Oliver coldly replies that nobody will acknowledge him if he keeps choosing the wrong path. As Oliver leaves, Aaron immediately rushes over to Shirts to check if he is all right. Cyan casually asks if he is struggling. Shirts' exhausted face already answers the question. Cyan reminds him that he lost badly to his eldest brother, Oliver, so he should start treating the potion like water. But after people discovered an entrance, mummies started crawling everywhere. According to his father, the place is deeply connected to them. After a brutal trek through the desert, Oliver points ahead and announces that this is the Spire of Ravelon. Thankfully, the guide creates a barrier so the group can move safely. Oliver comments that he did not expect Princess Aaron to be interested in a place like this. Shirts confidently tells Aaron not to worry since they will protect her no matter what. Then he grabs Shirts and suddenly asks Aaron whether she would consider continuing her engagement with him instead. Aaron accepts the proposal but explains that permission from the imperial family is still necessary since she must follow their decision. Back home, Shirts cannot stop replaying Oliver's words in his head. Oliver had openly said that he and Princess Aaron looked good together and even promised to speak with the imperial family himself. At that point, Shirts is basically floating. The guy finally got acknowledged. Then he suddenly wonders what Cyan would say about all this. Completely stunned, Shirts asks why they are doing this. Barrett curses blindly since he cannot even tell who is beating him. By then, Aaron is no longer waiting passively for answers, and her suspicion has turned directly toward the secrets surrounding House Robbie. Shirts has finally tasted recognition after years of contempt, yet that new confidence has pulled him into a conspiracy much larger than one family feud. Barrett, once protected by status and cruelty, is left shaken and powerless while the people he treated as disposable begin choosing their own paths. Cyan remains hidden inside the conflict, still moving against prophecies, false gods, corrupt nobles, and every chain that once dictated how his life should end. For the first time in his second life, Cyan is no longer anyone's weapon, and every step he takes now belongs to him.